So we have somebody in the waiting room.
They don't have their first and last name, so I'm not letting them in. I've messaged them that they need their first and their last name to be admitted. This because of the Zoom bombing problem.
We set to start?
We are set to start. We are
Okay, I'm
recording.
going to start the meeting at 6 o'clock. This is Select Board, October 14th. And I'm calling the meeting to order. Any changes to the agenda?
I'm tracking 3. Who else tracking what?
3 changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We said we were going to strike the road report. Is that true?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
We were going to add, talking about a legal action over the paving mishap out front to address the possibility of that. This was,
That is time sensitive, isn't it?
yeah.
We probably
If
should.
it's legal action, wouldn't that be an executive session with a lawyer?
I think that the action, this is an action item in which I think we're going to say, let's talk to our attorney.
Okay.
But it's the
Okay.
decision for all of us to do so.
Mhm.
And then there was the potential Better Connections grant authorization to proceed to Rose Paul, who offered to write the grant for us, but needs our go-ahead to do so.
Did we decide we were doing that tonight or next meeting?
So what she will work on is going to come back to us next meeting for us to formally say yay or nay on. But she is, I think, wanting authorization to proceed with writing the grant on our behalf.
Yeah, I read that over. We should have an agenda item. I have a couple of comments and questions about that.
So that's the third agenda item that I'm tracking.
Where do we want to put those? We have a
Later is fine.
discussion about disability insurance is coming up later, right?
Is this from?
We could do it around that.
Yeah, well, why don't we stick them in where the road commissioner's report was?
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Okay, thank you for those changes. Any announcements for anybody? Hearing none. Public comment? Oh, go ahead, Louis.
As you know, I live up on Brook Road.
Oh, do state your name for the record also?
Yeah, turn it on.
It should be on.
It's on. You
It's
just
on.
have to get
You just have to
close
get closer to it.
I tried to get a hold of you, Carl, and Ron Tobin today.
Could you tell your name, speak your name in there?
Louis Scott.
Yeah.
I live on Brook Road and on where Corey Cochran used to live. It's a condemned house. There's somebody squatting in that house. And there's now 4 campers on the lawn. One of them's right in the road. One of them's got a sewer pipe going down into the brook bed. And, we pay taxes as his own piece of property. Got nothing to do with nipping on the sewer pipe, just having the campers there. It's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to the sheriff or a constable, and he tells me that they all have a criminal background. And I think I know one of them for sure that does. And I just wonder, paying for zoned property, what does the town do about something like that?
Well, as I understand, the state police have been contacted, and they are,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that's
That's what the
it's,
constable told me a month and a half ago.
he said
They
what?
just moved in another camper.
The constable's the one who is communicating with the state police. And they have to be the ones to deal with this, because the constable's not going down there to,
And no push from the town.
well, we're pushing, but we have to let the state police gather the evidence they
There's
need.
a sewer pipe going into the brook bed that my
That's, yeah, I haven't heard that one. I knew there was,
Can I speak about this for a second? It's Bram, town clerk.
yeah, go-
Just so you know, Louis, I contacted the state and tried to approach this by having them enforce environmental errors, and the state refused. I hear your frustration, and I want the board to know that this is not the first time that you've been let down by a system that doesn't take aggressive action. I know there was another trailer moved onto that property yesterday or the day before, and it's an outrage and a disgrace. And I'm not sure what to do. Believe me, we are incredibly concerned about it.
Yes, Peter?
I just don't understand how we can pay for zone property. State police don't do anything about it, and the state can't do anything about it. The town can't do anything about it. Where does the zoning come from? I mean, how do we justify paying for zone property when some of the properties in this town look the way they do?
Louis, if I might, we had the issue up on Bean Road that went on
I know what.
for years. And there was a zoning administration stuff brought in there, and it resulted in, court action, made it very complicated, and the judge in that basically initially ruled against the town and said we needed to switch over to a municipal ticketing ordinance system, and we've been doing some work on that. With the town constable, with the zoning administrator, town health officer, animal control officer, Bram and I, we've had a subcommittee. We'll talk about that a little later on the agenda. In terms of this property, Dan has told us that, Dan Caddy has told us that the state police are investigating, that there's potential drug trafficking going on there, criminal records, et cetera. And so, as Carl said, they're collecting some evidence. I don't know what that is. We have not received a briefing on that, et cetera. This is the first tonight that I've heard about the sewer pipe, which goes back to the Bean Road issue, where it sounds like there possibly is a zoning administration, a zoning violation there that we could have the zoning administrator move to enforce. But I have a question for Bram, which is, Bram, you said you contacted the state. Who did you contact at the state? And you said they did nothing. Who are they?
They are, the A&R has a specific, they have one very underfunded officer for basically the entire state. His budget is, 1/6 what the animal enforcement is, and he's the person who is in charge of violations of water. I don't know what the title is. And I said, I want you to drive by there. There's no power. And he reported back that the septic system was intact. Therefore, there's nothing he can do. That's what he said.
Septic system was only intact because he got a grant, that Corky guy that lived there, got a grant from the state to put in a new septic system. That goes for the house. The trailers do not have a septic system.
We have guests that have to talk here. Can we
May I make
follow up with this? And yes, I'm
super
sorry.
briefly? I don't know if you're still going to be here when Dan Caddy, our constable, is going to be here in like an hour or so, but a message from Dan about this property. Any reporting party, which would be you, need to report these things by calling to Vermont State Police and then providing the constable, Dan Caddy, a report number, or just let them know the day and time of each report. The town has zero authority here. Intervening is not safe for any town official. This is felony level criminal activity, and VSP has the authority to act, but they can't if reports aren't made. And
If
so
it's not safe for the town to intervene, why should it be safe for a neighbor? He told me to send him an email, and I didn't send it to him, because these guys, criminal activity, I'm on a dead-end road, and they want me to put my neck out there, and the town can't?
No, I think the directive here is to call the Vermont State Police. The more reports that the Vermont State Police receives about this activity, the more they have liberty to act. But behind the scenes, I don't know what's going on, but I just wanted to relay that message specifically to you.
He told me that.
Yep. Okay, we are going to talk, and if we hear anything, Louis, we'll get to you, but we are following this up. Bridge 21 and Mill Street Bridge do we want to have a presentation on these items?
Shall I start the screen share?
Yes, please.
And, yeah, okay.
Oh, no, that's not.
It's the green button,
The green?
green button right at the bottom.
Thank you.
And then click on it, yep,
Thank you.
and then share down there. And if you click where the people on the side are, you have to click that, there you go.
Okay, and is there any way to, there we go, how about that? One at a time.
Can you hit I think F12, is that enter full screen mode?
I just zoomed so it's approximately
Okay.
full screen. Maybe there's a slide, but here we go. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Thank you for having us. I'm Brian Breslin, Du Bois King.
Do we need to move the microphone over? for
I'm
him?
just wondering that, yes.
Well, for
Yeah.
people on Zoom, it's this microphone.
Oh, okay,
So as long as, I don't know if people, if Graham
Yeah,
or someone
just
can let
move
us
that
know
over.
if he can, if they can hear him, well, they're not gonna get us. Yeah, that'll work, yep.
Okay. Brian Breslin, Du Bois King. I'm the design consultant project manager. With me here tonight is Andrew Hummers, the lead bridge engineer. I also saw on the virtually that Evan Dietrich with VHB, he is our consultant municipal project manager for this project, is here with us this evening. And that's the project team that's here tonight. I guess could you advance to the next slide?
Yes.
So why we're here tonight is I just want to give an overview of the project, how the project is going to get developed, or the process involved. We're now in the project alternative stage, so we've presented alternatives analysis reports for both Mill Street and Brook Road, and we've provided recommendations, and we're going to be presenting those to you tonight. Next slide, please. So just aerial view showing US Route 2 in relation to the Mill Street Bridge 20 and Brook Road Bridge 21. Can you move to advance to the next slide? Again, just a project overview of the two sites. The top one obviously is Mill Street Bridge 20 with a temporary truss bridge on stub abutments. And the bottom photo shows Brook Road Bridge 21, built circa the 1920s.
Brian, just a quickie, are you not talking about the washout just a little bit up past Bridge 21 tonight?
Are you talking to Cameron?
Just the bridges? Okay.
Just the two bridges.
Okay, I thought this was gonna be three parts, so, okay. Thank you.
Because the use of federal monies for this project, we need to follow the VTRANS Municipal Assistance Bureau flowchart. What I provided right here is just a general list of steps that we're currently at. We're at the public meeting stage and the steps that need to be followed. At the conclusion of this meeting, we're hoping that the town can select a superstructure and a substructure and a traffic control methodology to advance to preliminary plans in NEPA. Following that would be potential right-of-way acquisition, permitting, and then going final plans, contract plans, bid phase, construction. Next slide, please. Some of the site challenges for both projects are the overhead utilities. They are located adjacent to both of the bridges, so the demolition and the construction of them will be problematic. So more than likely, a temporary relocation or a permanent relocation will be required for those utilities. Also, in the village setting, we've assumed a right-of-way of 3 rods. One rod is 16.5 feet long, so 3 rods, 49.5 feet. We're thinking it's more than likely that you are going to need some type of permanent or temporary easements if the parcels adjacent to the project do not are owned by the town through the FEMA buyout process. Another site constraint is the current V-Trans hydraulic requirements. Based on the design storm event, you're supposed to have a 1 foot of freeboard for debris flow to pass underneath your low chord of your bridge. So that would mean that for these two projects, the roadway profiles will rise.
Can you explain that term, the freeboard?
It's just the amount of vertical opening from your water surface elevation of your storm event to your bottom underside of your bridge.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
What is the design storm?
I guess maybe, could we hold off on questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
I think I'll answer a lot of
we'll
people's
answer them later.
Another thing, as we were going through this alternatives analysis, was the Bridge 27, Main Street, right near the Main Street US 2 road intersection. There is a weight limit on that. Depending on what is crossing the bridge, it may be problematic, such as a heavy crane coming across for erection of the bridge.
This is on Route 2?
Your Main Street
The bridge over the
Oh,
dam.
I see, okay, thank you.
Could you move it to the next slide? So, hydrology and hydraulics, our D&K's subconsultant, Elena Smith with Hydrus Engineering, performed this task for us. One of the first steps is trying to determine the design storm event. For the bridge opening area, she chose a Q50 or a 2% annual exceedance probability for the design storm event, and that's based on the V-Trans hydraulics manual. The Brook Road and Mill Street are both classified as major collectors, and so based on the table, you're supposed to be designing to a Q50 storm event. For the hydrology component, she was trying to determine how much peak flow would be going beneath both bridges. She looked at regional regression equations. She coordinated with state permitting, state agencies, and then also looked at stream gauge data. Her recommendation, based on 80% confidence level, was a flow rate of 2,800 CFS approximately through both bridges. Once that was known, moving to hydraulics, she tried finding what was the required waterway opening. She is recommending a clear span of 55 feet, and based on the storm event, provided low chord elevations. So low chord being, again, the bottom of the bridge on the underside.
This is Mill Street.
I've provided both low chord elevations for Mill Street and Brook Road.
This
So
is
both
elevation
of them,
from sea
you're
level.
recommending 55 feet span on both of them?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
To put that in comparison, I believe the Brook Road existing bridge is 24 foot clear span.
Yeah.
Finally, as part of this task, we've estimated scour estimates based on V-Trans hydraulics manual. We're supposed to be looking at the 100-year storm and I believe an additional check of the 200-year storm. What we're coming up with is 11 or 12 feet below the bottom of the channel would be a scour event.
Okay.
So I guess put that into perspective. If this was if scour wasn't analyzed, a V-Trans recommendation with a V-Trans hydraulics report might say putting the bottom of your structure 6 feet below stream bed. So much deeper than maybe a general V-Trans recommendation.
And that's just where the supports are going, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Geotechnical. This past summer, another one of our subconsultants, GZA, Geoenvironmental, conducted subsurface investigations, borings, 2 on Mill Street, 1 on Brook Road, and they were able to use some boring information from a previous design consultant, so limiting the amount of borings required for Brook Road. They found that the soils consisted of fills, sand, silt clays, some sand, gravel deposits, and for the Mill Street project, probable bedrock was 80 feet below ground surface, and for Brook Road, just slightly less than 100 feet. Their conclusions were that spread footings are suitable to bear on these soils. However, they acknowledged or were aware of the scour potential for both these bridges. They also mentioned that pile foundations would also be suitable. Utilities. I've already mentioned area utilities. In general, the Brook Road Bridge has less utilities than Mill Street, so there's less coordination or impacts to those. On the Brook Road Bridge, I'm only aware of besides aerial, a water line that got damaged during the July 2024 storm event, and it's capped. And for the Mill Street, there are sanitary sewer, drainage, and a water line in that area that may be affected. Okay, moving next slide. This is just a regurgitation of what I said earlier about the 3-rod right-of-way and the need for potential permanent and temporary easements. Could you move on to the next slide? This is what we're calling a right-of-way plan showing the right-of-way limits, 49.5 feet, centered on the roadway with property ownership and property lines. This is a depiction of concept sketch proposed improvements. As you can see, the wing walls there are approaching the right-of-way limits, and what is not shown right now, we're showing a 9-foot travel lane and a 2-foot shoulder, 22 feet wide, currently on the roadway. What we're not showing is 6 inches of curbing and a sidewalk. So when you take that into account, most likely the wing walls are going to be at or outside the right-of-way. We can modify those or consider changing the geometry as the design progresses. Could you move to the next slide, Brook Road right-of-way plan? Again, this is showing generally the same information with just, again, the need for potential right-of-way in the area. Moving on to environmental resources. Again, because of federal monies used on this project, NEPA documentation is required, National Environmental Policy Act. It's a US law that requires federal agencies to evaluate environmental impacts whenever a federal proposed action is being implemented. For permits, we're anticipating a US Army Corps general permit, and then the other one associated with a bridge is a stream alteration permit. Also, as part of this environmental task, D&K staff visited the site this summer to identify natural resources. The conclusion was that there was no significant species, rare, threatened, endangered species within the project site, which is a good thing. They did document invasive species, so things like Japanese knotweed, things like that in the area.
Yeah.
So this is a layout plan. As the design is progressed, we would be developing more detail. For this right here, I just wanted to point out, we're showing a 55-foot clear span on the bridge, pointing out proposed wing walls and potential roadway reconstruction limits.
Does that include the rising of the road, as you said?
Yeah, if we move on to the next slide. This is a profile view of Mill Street, showing the approximate 2 to 3 foot rise in the bridge. We're currently showing shallow roadway approach slopes of 1%, 2%. I just want to mention, depending, as the project is developed, if we determine, or the town determines, or the property owner says impacts to my property are too great, one of the things we can do is potentially steepen the roadway approach grades while still keeping it to acceptable grading. But for right now, we're just showing 1%, 2% grades, shallow to kind of mimic what's out there currently. Moving on to Brook Road, it's this, again, same information that I presented for Mill Street, 55-foot clear span. The one thing I might want to mention for this one is we are currently proposing or thinking about for the western abutment, keeping it in its existing location and expanding to the east. Because the western abutment ties in well with the existing rock armoring and existing concrete wall downstream. But again, as we develop, we will, refine that. Again, there's the 2 to 3 foot rise in the profile. We are currently showing, I guess, tangential kink points in the roadway profile. As we progress to preliminary plans, we'll be putting in vertical curves and refining the profile. But again, we're showing a 2% downward, upward and downward approaches on the roadway here, which could get steepened to 3% or 4% to limit impacts. Okay. So we've identified 3 areas or 3 traffic control schemes in which both these bridge projects could get constructed. One of them will be a permanent roadway and bridge realignment upstream or downstream of the existing bridge. Key advantages to this would be that the traffic would be minimal disruption to the existing traffic and building everything offline. Key disadvantages, I don't feel like it meets the village character to have a S maneuvers in the roadway, and then there would be major right-of-way acquisition for that. A second traffic control scheme that we considered was a temporary road and bridge upstream or downstream and reconstruction of the existing bridge alignments. Major key advantages is that it allows for on-alignment construction, but one of the major key disadvantages would be that it's most costly for traffic control. Finally, another scheme we looked at was bridge closure with a detour. Both bridges could be built on alignment. This would require the least amount of right-of-way.
Does alignment mean at the same time?
I mean horizontal alignment to the roadway.
Oh, I see.
And then it's the least costly. You don't have to maintain traffic. The issue with this though is if you close one bridge, you would have to use the other bridge as part of the detour. And so it would have to be constructed sequentially. Moving on to the next slide. Again, it's just kind of depicting what I was trying to describe. The one on the left would be a temporary road and bridge downstream. It could also be upstream, and building the Mill Street Bridge on alignment. The same thing, or vice versa for Brook Road. And the picture on the right, I'm just trying to depict bridge closure with a detour on Brook Road, Creamery, and Hudson.
Wouldn't the detour make more sense just to go up Main Street rather than Hudson, which is a dirt road?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's just that, everything's paved except for
Yep,
Hudson.
I guess I didn't take that into consideration, but yes, that
Okay.
makes sense to me. And again, vice versa, swapping once one of the bridges is constructed. Okay, next slide. Andrew?
We looked at a few different superstructural alternatives just to get an idea of what was going to happen. Rolled steel beams, northeast extreme T beams, or double T precast concrete, deck rolled Ts, precast concrete, precast concrete arches, and precast concrete deck slab beams. I'll talk about each of those in a minute. I guess next slide. Rolled steel beams, the typical, historically easy to construct, contractors are generally familiar with them. Issues with that we might run into, typical steel corrosion over the life. Normal design life is like 50 to 75 years, but you will get corrosion with the exposed steel over the time, regardless of what sort of corrosion protection you have. But that might be the quote-unquote simplest construction with the lightest individual beams. You would, with that option, once you put the steel beams in over the span, you would need to do concrete formwork and cast a full depth reinforced concrete deck to work with the beams. So that'll extend out the contractor's construction time a little, but that's not uncommon. The other positive of that is, I think we designed those conceptually with about a 27-inch deep steel beam. So figure a 27-inch beam and an 8-inch concrete deck would be looking at a 35 inches plus or minus total structure depth. That would have to take into consideration the hydraulic opening that Brian was talking about before and the raising of the roadway. So in terms of that hydraulic, we want to keep the beams as shallow as possible. I guess next slide. And northeast extreme T-beams, or they're double T pre-stressed concrete beams. That would be the heaviest option in terms of weight. So concrete in general is a nice option because you kind of put it in there and forget it. You don't have to worry about corrosion issues as long as it's constructed correctly and do some minor maintenance. Downsides of that, it's generally a deeper beam because it's a standardized concrete section that they would have at a precaster shop. So we're kind of forced into the concrete depth that we have. So this would be deeper than the steel beam option. The beams, I think, are the shallow. Those are 36-inch beams, I believe. And if we went with this type of beam, which is an F designation, we would also need to install a concrete deck on top of it. So figure a 36-inch beam and a 6-inch deck. So we're looking at a 42-inch deep section total. So that would mean like one of the higher raising of the road situations. So again, like anything else, it has its positives and its benefits. And as I mentioned before, this is the heaviest option. Double T beams, it's pretty wide, and you're basically getting 2 beams in one. So we would only need maybe 3 or 4 beams, depending side by side, depending on the roadway design that's required, the number of lanes, lane width, and all that. So we'd only have to put 3 beams in place, but they're extremely heavy beams on the order of 80, 90,000 pounds. So you would need to have like a 350, 400 ton crane brought onto site. So that's a consideration, like Brian mentioned before, the Main Street Bridge. It's posted somewhat. I think I looked at that and it's not anything out of the ordinary, but that would have to be a consideration for something like this because we need to bring in a big crane on site to do the lifts.
Mhm.
The next option, I think, the next slide, I think, talks about bulb tees. Similar, these are same basic idea as the double Ts. Precast concrete, double T beams, they're about the same depth. I think this option that we looked at is forget exactly which beam option we looked at, but still we're looking at somewhere between a 36-inch to a 42-inch total depth once you consider the beam itself and then the cast-in-place deck. You can do the option you have to do with selecting either the double T or the single T bulb is that they could be constructed, or the beam selected could either have the deck already cast in place, so once you put it in place, it's ready to get traffic right on top of it, or to get a slightly shallower and then pour the deck in place. So if we're looking at speeding up construction, we'd want to get them with the deck already cast in place. there's a little bit extra construction tolerances and closure points, or closure pores in between the beams to make sure we have a nice tight side-by-side action. But those are some of the options we could look at. And again, beam weight, this isn't as heavy as double T, but it's still a pretty heavy beam, heavier than, definitely heavier than the steel option. So we still need to keep the required crane erection in mind. And the next option we're looking at is a precast steel arch. Simple construction. This is kind of, I'll call it relatively simple to construct. The arches can be as wide as the fabricator wants to make them, so theoretically it could be an easy erection once you put them inside. The downside I see to this is the hydraulic opening question, because obviously the arches dive down on the sides. So if we need a certain, call it an area for water to flow through, then we'll have to raise up the arches in order to get that above the bottom of the stream. So this is kind of, in my opinion, this is probably not something we want to look at, but it is an option.
You said steel, and the slide says concrete.
So, I'm sorry, theoretically, we could do a steel too, but we're looking at a concrete option.
Okay,
That would make more sense in this situation if we did do that. But steel theoretically would be an option, but I don't think we want to even bother investigating that.
I guess one other thing I want to mention is, on top of the superstructure depth, there's also the roadway fill material, and also considering driving guardrail posts potentially. So there's additional depth above the arch itself that would raise the roadway profile even further.
How much is that likely to be?
Usually minimum fill at the crown of the arch is about 2 feet. So figure whatever your arch, the top of the arch goes to,
Yeah,
then you have to go up 2 feet for dirt,
okay,
and then, 6 inches or whatever you need for the pavement on that.
yeah, okay,
But guardrail posts, if it's a 6-foot standard guardrail post, it's 3 foot and change into the ground. And you probably want some room from the top of the structure to the bottom of the guardrail.
okay.
So,
And next slide. And this is voided deck slabs or whatever the terminology is. This is again, a PCI standard. Sections are usually cast in either 3-foot widths or 48 or 3-foot or 4-foot widths, depending. So that's what we have to play with. This conceptual plan thrown together, assuming I think the total roadway width was like 27 feet for imagination purposes. And I think we had 9 beams. So you need to do more beam erections, but compared to like the double T beams that we were looking at before, these are a lot lighter and a lot shallower. Like the double T beams, including the deck, was something on the order of 42 inches. And slab beams, the heaviest slab you can get is 21 inches deep. So, and that 21 inches includes the riding surface, so you don't have to do a cast-in-place desk necessarily. You just need to either put, you can drive across the solid concrete, or you can put asphalt overlay or a concrete overlay to get a nice smooth riding surface or something that's easy to repair in the future. We didn't look at this initially because we were looking at, stream or bridge spans of like on the order of 60 or 70 feet, because we were still doing preliminary hydraulic analysis. But now I think we're looking at 55 feet. So textbooks wise, 50 feet is on the upper limit, but running through the calculations we did, this should work fine for 55 feet in this section. So I think we're saying this is probably the best option. Shallower beam, a lighter beam, so you need a smaller crane, it's concrete, less corrosion to worry about than you would with the steel option. And this is probably the way we're gonna lead to go, or we're gonna recommend, I think.
The white circles, are those like cable holes? Are there cables running through?
No, typically these are called, this is a PCI, the Precast Institute, the concrete fabricators. It's similar to the AISC, the American Steel Construction. The PCI is the precast, the concrete version of that. But this is their standard section. These are called voided slabs. they actually have that's usually like a 10-inch void in there.
Just to make them lighter.
Beg your pardon?
It's just to make them lighter.
Yeah, basically to make them lighter. They have, it's not, they're usually not like a full-length void. You have solid section diaphragms along the beam, but with these voids in between. So it lightens it up because basically all your strength is coming from the rebar that's sitting up above the circles and pre-stressing strands that are sitting below it. And so it's kind of like in a traditional, concrete T-beam, like Brook Road is, there's all that concrete running through there, but theoretically you don't, from a strength standpoint, you don't necessarily need all of it, so that's why we end up with these voids to make it lighter. Next slide. And substructures. We're looking at basically 3 options that we were throwing around and talking about. Like Brian said before, and the whole reason we're here talking is because, there's erosion's been a problem in the past and whatnot. And soil erosion and scour is a real consideration. So a couple of the things we were looking at was a deep cast in place option, shallow cast in place with some type of permanent sheet piling around it, or a deep pile foundation or steel H piles or something like that. I'll talk about each of these next slide. So a deep cast in place concrete spread footing, it would theoretically just be a traditional, reinforced concrete abutment, something like that. But like Brian mentioned before, the theoretical scour elevation on the stream is something like, what, 10 feet below? 11 to 12. 11 to 12 feet below the existing stream bed. So in order to rule out possible scour in the future damaging the bridge substructure, you would need to drop down the bottom of that concrete abutment, 11 plus feet, because you need to get down to the theoretical, take away 11 feet, during a storm event, and then you want to be a few feet down from that so that the concrete still has something to sit on. So if we went with this option, it would be extremely tall, I'll put it that way. So next slide.
Hold on, one thing I want to mention is there would need to be a supportive excavation to get down to that depth too, with like sheeting.
Yes, because obviously we need to get below the existing stream bed. So there's not a lot of water right now, but you have to allow for that. So the contractor would need some sort of temporary cofferdam situation, and then you have to go down 10 plus feet, which that becomes a whole workers' safety issue that would need to be done, because it's basically, once you get down below the stream bed, if you're 11 feet below the stream bed, all that stream bed pressure from the earth and the fill and the dirt, it's still pressing against whatever that supportive excavation he has. So that would have to be a pretty heavy contractor design. So that would be just another pain in the butt in terms of construction and just another expense. The other option, or another option we're looking at, was similar to, it's still a cast in place footing design like what we just talked about, but if we put some sort of permanent or left in place sheeting around, basically a steel box around the abutment, we can just come in, a contractor can come in and drive with a heavy vibratory hammer. They can drive in steel sheeting into the ground without having to do much excavation, and just get that down well below the scour depth. And that kind of rules out scour right there. So then it serves as scour protection for the permanent bridge, and it also serves as a supportive excavation for any groundwork that the contractor has to do. And then say, instead of going down 11 feet, they only have to go down 4 feet or whatever. And the steel sheeting is going to be there, so and then they have a box to work in and put a concrete option in that way.
And that works because you're not down to the bedrock level.
Yeah, basically the geotechnical report we had, it said basically the in-place soil should be sufficient to handle a spread footing for a bridge this size. So theoretically, we don't need to worry about going down to the bedrock, which is greater than 80 feet, which is, we don't want to go that way if we don't have to. And next slide. The other option we were talking about is a deep foundation or a steel pile foundation or a flexible foundation, where instead of concrete resting and getting all that vertical support from the soils in place, you put big, long steel and you drive it down into the ground. Depending on the design, we could either do it to, say, 60 feet, and it would just be the friction of the sand and dirt in place holding everything up, or we'd have to go down to like 80 feet and hit the bedrock, so it's basically standing on bedrock and holding everything up. Generally, it's a good option because it's a deep foundation you don't have to worry about, and it's relatively simple construction, but it's very equipment intensive. So they'd have to bring in some big hammers to drive stuff in place, and it's, from previous work experience, it's common to do in places like South Jersey and New York City, where you've got soils like that and a lot of traffic, whereas I don't know how much contractor, availability is locally for when you're dealing with equipment like that. The good thing about this option, theoretically, it handles the scour issue, where it's, the piles are just way below the scour depth. The theoretical problem with that issue, though, is if you did have a big storm come through and blew everything out, and it took out all the soil from underneath the bridge theoretically would still be standing, but then you'd have kind of a big void space in between the steel piles that you'd have to fill back in with something. We could do a similar thing with the slide we saw before and just put in, stay in place steel sheeting to preclude that too, but then added work and added expense. It's a nice end product, but it's more difficult and more time consuming and more expensive construction. So probably I think what we recommended in the report is the second slide we were at before. Basically a shallow foundation with a permanent steel sheeting left in place. And I forget what the next slide was.
Yeah, alternatives matrix. We compiled two tables based on the superstructure and the substructure, identifying ways to compare them. In general, we thought that for the most part, the roadway reconstruction was the same, with the exception of the slab beams, because the depth of the superstructure is less, so the roadway approach limits will be less. However, the superstructure itself is probably slightly more expensive than the next beams because of the amount of concrete required in comparison to the next beam. For the shallow spread footings with permanent sheeting and the deep foundations, we thought it was very similar in cost at $500,000 and $550,000. One of the things I wanted to really point out is we're identifying costs in these tables. Those are just comparative costs. I wanted to point out the note at the bottom that we believe that anything you select is going to be construction-wise at a minimum $2 million, but could go higher in the $2 to $4 million range. And also, I wanted to mention
For the two bridges.
Each.
each bridge.
Each, yeah.
I also wanted to mention, and I don't know if you heard this or not, for these projects, I believe it's 80% FHWA funds, 10% state will kick in money, and the remaining 10% I think needs to be funded by the town. So we've come up with all these list of rankings or criteria, and then ultimately, if we move on to the next slide, the next slide is Brook Road, but it's basically the same slide, the same information. Moving on to recommendations. We are recommending the concrete deck slab. I think the key points is it's comparably one of the lowest costs in comparison to maybe the next beam, and then it has the least amount of roadway approach impacts. So that's what we're thinking about that. For the substructure, we were leaning towards the shallow cast in place concrete spread footings with permanent sheet piles. to prevent scour. Again, this has a similar cost to the piles, and it has more scour protection for the roadway than piles. I do want to mention though, is if this was a V-Trans project, I think they'd automatically go with a pile foundation. And if a scour event curves, they just sacrifice the road, and just let the road go.
So there's no structure, there's no pre-stressed footing. Is that what you're saying? I mean,
A pile foundation is, there's the beams in the ground, and then so if the scour event occurs beneath the abutment,
Yeah.
it will get behind the road.
Yeah.
By the abutment and eat into the roadway.
yeah, okay.
Another thing is, we are treating the permanent sheet piling, if this was to be as a structural element, we would need some type of wailer or some type of resistance. If the scour event occurred, there would be movement on the sheet piling because the soil isn't there to resist it. So we would need to incorporate some type of design element so that it's no movement. And you mentioned a wailer.
Yeah, normally what you do in a situation is you put your sheet in the ground and it has a steel wailer on it, or basically a steel strap or strengthening arm, so that, you know, it's like kind of following the theory that if you push a lot of force on this side, instead of just the sheet holding itself, it's spreading all that load across the entire wall. Usually it ends up being, you know, a small, short H-pile section or a C-channel, but that's, you know, bolted and or welded to the sheet pile face, and then possibly strapped to a dead man or something that goes back landward. That's, you know, going to be there. But that's relatively, in comparison to putting sheets in the ground, that's a relatively simple.
Yeah,
And then finally, for traffic control, we're recommending sequential bridge closure. We just don't think there's enough room to maintain traffic off to the side, and contractor operations with putting in a crane or storing equipment in a village setting like this. And the other added benefit, it's, you know, the least amount of right of way, least, and this will be the least costly. Schedule. One of the requirements would be for this project is to get to bid phase or authorization to bid about 1 year from now, with a goal of constructing in spring of 2027. One of the things that we would do as both projects are advanced, would be adding details to the plans about, or directions to the contractor about making the bridge prefabricated. Yes, could you?
ABC, accelerated bridge construction, is a buzz term that's been floating around the past several years, just for projects that are on a tight schedule for either budgetary reasons, funding reasons, and or traffic reasons. It's basically get the contractor out there and have them do the bridge as quickly as possible. You know, that can mean either the entire project, you know, or just the road closure time. But usually that would entail more precast elements than just the superstructure. Like when they bring in the beams for any project, you know, even if they're for concrete, they're considered precast. So you don't have to do anything with them on site. You just drop them in place and that's it. But whereas for a normal bridge construction, and what we were originally conceptually thinking is for, you know, a cast in place concrete abutment. You know, it takes a couple of weeks for them to form it up on site. It takes, you know, a couple of days for them to put a rebar cage in there, and then it takes 7 days, or, you know, once they pour the concrete, it's got to be at least, you know, 14 to 28 days before they can put any real weights on it. And so that's a project, whereas you can do precast elements for the substructure so that they go quick too. It just, contractor comes in, does all the excavation, then they drop in all the pieces, tie them all together, and they're good to go. They're strong and ready to grow. And you drop the beams on top of that, and you basically kind of compress your construction time into that. Downside of a situation like that is it's more expensive, because you're basically kind of doing building the bridge twice per se. You're, the shop is casting everything in place, so that costs money. And then they have to actually put it in place on site, so that's going to cost money. But you're paying for the speed of construction.
Okay.
I guess one final thing is, I said this in the beginning, I'll say this at the end before questions, comments. I think this is our end of our presentation, minus questions, comments. I'm hoping maybe this evening or shortly after, the town could make a decision on how to proceed with what direction you'd like us to go with.
I'm sorry, on what timeline did you say?
I would prefer I would prefer tonight, but I understand, that might not happen. To stay on schedule, I think we'd need a decision maybe in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Max. We are currently ahead of schedule. This meeting was scheduled for 1 month later in the previous slide, so I think we are 1 month ahead of schedule.
So if we approve this at our October 28th meeting, we'd still be, if there's lingering questions, I'm not saying no.
I guess I prefer early on.
Yeah.
Or wait, 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks from today, that's 2 weeks from
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
Questions? Go ahead, Peter.
This is all fascinating about the superstructure and the substructure and all of that stuff. What about what aesthetically we're gonna see above ground when we're done, in terms of, the bridge, the walls, that we see when we go across the Main Street Bridge here? Most of the bridges in town have a similar kind of concrete wall. Many of them have the date 1927 or something close by. Just in terms of historical aesthetics, any thought on that?
Well, the superstructure itself, like if we go with the slab beams, that 21 inches below the riding surface, that's just going to be a concrete rectangle. So kind of similar to what you see on Brook Road. Whereas as far as what comes above that, what you're going to see walking across there, if we go with standard plain stuff, it's just going to be plain concrete. But what we can do with that is, I've been involved in many projects with that, is they'll put because the guardrail is it's a cast in place item, and so what they can do is contractors can put a form liner in there so that you get a nice railing feature on the outside, so it kind of gives that bit of a historic look.
East Montpelier did that.
I beg your pardon?
East Montpelier did that, and it looks nice.
Can a concrete parapet be added to any of the superstructures we looked at?
Possibly, yes.
A concrete is the concrete bridge railing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's, yes, standard, for those standard beam, it's, we could do a steel rail would be an option, but it's all to put a cast in place concrete guardrail with the form liner. But that's a aesthetics issue more than anything.
So like, yeah, again, it's an aesthetics question, and we have these like nice bulbous lights here on this Main Street Bridge, so we could do, nothing that you're talking about here would get in the way of doing those kinds of things above ground.
Anything aesthetically, I would refer back to maybe V-Trans as for the final approval, whether or not they would be kicking in for that aspect.
I had a question first, and then I'll get you. We've had a lot of work done on this brook for the last 40 years, and flow rates and so on. So have you been working with the folks who have been doing the studies on the brook, so you really feel comfortable with the flows and understanding the trees that come down with the flows? I'm just concerned about jam ups and damming the bridges.
Our hydraulic and H&H subconsultant, Elena Smith, was coordinating with, I think George Springston has been involved, as well as other state agencies. And prior to her coming up with the flow rates, there was coordination efforts on their end.
Okay.
And I will say though, is she had a high confidence interval in her determination of the flow rate, so there is a factor of safety in there and in the amount of flow rate.
Okay, that's just a concern.
Just
Rod?
to add, I was in meetings with her and Stacy Pomeroy and others
Okay.
from UVM, and I made sure that it's coordinated with George and then Wes from SLR. So that everyone who's looking at this watershed is like, you know, she had good access to all of the previous.
Okay, I mean, there's no guarantee, I realize, but we want to be smart about this. Make sure we have enough height or width or flow rate through the bridge. You have a question? Matt?
Yeah, so for the two bridges, what's the total project cost? And did I hear we have a 10% match
Yes.
required by the town?
Yes,
4 to 8 million.
4 to 8 million.
So we're gonna have to have $400,000 to $800,000.
So,
Yeah.
so there's multiple costs for these projects. There's preliminary engineering costs, which are D&K's costs as the design consultant. There are VHB's costs as municipal project manager, and then there's other engineering costs. So once we are done with bid phase and we put this out to construction, the town is going to need to hire a construction engineer for near full-time inspection of the project. So there's all those costs, and then there's potential right-of-way costs. If you have a FEMA buyout and you own the parcel, you don't need a right-of-way cost. Those are relatively inexpensive. And then there's state permit costs, which are relatively inexpensive. But the big thing is construction cost.
So to speak to that, so we think about what we've already expended, right? In overall, like on the flood, emergency relief between what we've, expended up to, say, July 1st, was about 1.7 million, 1.8 million. Let's call it 1.8 million. We have this loan from the Vermont Bond Bank at 0.5%. So in terms of cash flow, as we receive the reimbursements back from FEMA and Federal Highway, that financial instrument has a 0.5% interest rate, which is very nice. So we'll have that 0.5% interest rate on that cash flow for up to 5 years. And then we were only in receipt of like a $1 million short-term loan. The other 800,000 came from like other sources of funds that we paid out, diverted from the, for example, the letter that you wrote about ARPA, and so what's going to happen is, as we get these reimbursements back, we can hold that, like half of that reimbursement, like because half we're obligated to pay back to the bond bank. We can hold half of that and have that available to pay these ongoing costs. So like the permanent work we pay out as things get billed to us, so people get paid, and that is where we will pay that 10% share. So this, like above that million, that 800,000, that is like essentially our money. And in the worst case scenario for these two bridges, that could be the match for these two bridges. Now we have other projects to do, but I don't anticipate and yesterday I met with a different municipal project managing firm and a different design firm to get, we're behind these two projects. These were the fronted projects. So I feel like even in the worst case scenario for this, we will be able to sustain the cash flow up to that 10% match in terms of like the permanent project overall. Now, 8 million is a pretty big number. $4 million for a 50-foot bridge seems like excessive, but I understand you have to keep, on the edge of the margins.
I guess we have not done a detailed measurement of pay items or a unit cost evaluations. If you give us direction, that's when we will start designing things and measuring and have a clearer picture of how much we think this is gonna cost.
But I feel like, overall, if we're looking at projects being in the $8 to $10 million range over the next 5 years, or potentially more, that is like we have a good capacity of cash flow to manage these projects. That's part of what this, above the 800,000, $500,000 we have at 0.5% that we can carry that year over year. And, and that's on, that's not on over the whole span. That will, what we're paying interest on will get smaller as we get reimbursements. One thing I forgot to say at announcements was we did get the first payment back from Federal Highway for the Mill Street Bridge last week at $210,000. So we're holding like, $105,000 in unobligated funds that we should hold in reserves in anticipation of some of these projects. So if these come back, we will be able to kind of move that money forward.
Dan?
So just one other question. So you are making 2 recommendations, which is the pre-stressed and the permanent pile. Are those optimized for overall safety, longevity, cost? Like what, I guess I'm trying to definitely want to take experts' recommendations, but is it I don't know, twice the cost for one of these things and another, but it's I don't know, not twice as long lasting? I don't know how these, how you decide on these recommendations.
The slides went by pretty quick.
Let me try to answer and then you can supplement. A concrete superstructure will have a longer design life than a steel superstructure. I disagree. He's the bridge guy. But in this case, we are thinking the superstructure is one of the least expensive options.
Okay.
For the substructure, we were recommending shallow spread footing with sheeting, and then as a potential alternative would be piles. They were comparable in our initial review, comparing the two.
Longevity and strength and reliability.
Is there anything else?
No, just pretty much on, for, I think, design life, for steel structures, it's usually about 50+ years, as for what the federal requirements, design requirements are. And then for precast concrete, it's usually estimated at 75+ years. So, I mean, just having, inspected, bridges from the 1930s and forward over the past year, the years, with today's concrete, the corrosion properties are going to be better with the concrete versus the steel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not going to be any of our problems. I'm hoping to be retired by that day. But in terms of the lifespan, being over the water, granted, it's not salt water, but still concrete option would be better in terms of the town, and there's less maintenance cost to it over the time, whereas steel will have more exposed stuff, and town inspectors will see stuff, and then residents will see stuff that has to get taken care of. But concrete is just concrete. You have to have a big problem, or you don't have a problem.
The town of Bethel put in a trussed galvanized arch bridge. I think partly because it reduces the amount of depth of the roadbed. Is that more expensive? I mean, is that an expensive option?
The steel arch, it would be the cheaper option, but it's also more, we didn't look at it, I'm not familiar with that project, but for 50 foot, you'd have,
Okay,
you need thicker material,
yeah,
but then you also have corrosion issues that are gonna be on the bottom with all the water exposure. So it's just gonna corrode over time, there's no way, really way around that, whether it's galvanized or not, any protection's gonna need to get touched up or redone over time.
yeah.
And then, I do not see the steel arch being any better option than the concrete as far as, maybe it might be a little cheaper, but then you might lose some longevity, I imagine.
Okay,
You're talking about the one right there by Peavine Park, right where you turn on one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, that's galvanized, and it's not that old, but that's what they chose. And I was thinking the depth, I mean, the pre-stressed panels that you're talking about, concrete, are only 21 inches, so that's pretty good, but even a truss bridge will be even less, I would think, because it's just the roadbed above the water.
I'd be curious to find out what they were doing, but trusses, as far as the federal highway is concerned, you can't build trusses anymore.
Oh, okay,
So that would be another route.
yeah.
They look nice, but they're not allowed.
Well, they're kind of traditional Vermont, too. I guess.
Failure critical?
yeah, the locals
It's
are
fracture critical, and
Yeah.
because, one portion of the truss fails, theoretically, your entire bridge just fails.
Hmm.
There are design ways around it, but to make it work and meet all federal standards, but it's a lot of fudging in terms of design work.
We don't want to be fudging.
To the, can
Don, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I have a question. I'm Dawn Fancher, and I just want to say for my parents, or Bob and Kathy, they live at the corner of Mill Street and Brook Street. It was on the maps; their names are on there. And I just had a question. I don't remember all the specific terms and phrases, so please bear with me. It all went by kind of fast. But for the substructure, I noticed on the option that was recommended, which was the second one, there were I forgot what the way they are, but there were the blue lines that were indicating where the stuff was going out almost to my parents' property line. And in the description of what was recommended, it mentioned that, oh, the V-Trans wouldn't do it, they just sacrifice the roadway, which led me to have a question, which is that hopefully the new bridge will be sized enough for any flood that we would face. But let's imagine a just catastrophic flood, bigger than last year, huge, and it starts to back up at that bridge. Are you saying, like, what would then happen in that case? Like, because, like, having seen the roadway be sacrificed on Mill Street several times since I've lived here, like, I'm just concerned about, would water start to back up? Would it threaten upstream homes that aren't bought out? That was my question. Like, what happens if the bridge is like, what's the fail state if there is a catastrophic flood? Thanks.
I should have brought the hydraulics engineer with me this evening. If the water surface elevation approached and it was above the low chord, and there's debris would halter the passage of water, and there would be, surge, probably a surge upstream. That being said, it would probably go above the top of the bank and into the overlying neighborhood. I believe the velocities would be less, though, in the floodplain or flat area versus the channel itself.
I guess my question is, would that design be trying to prevent the roadway on the sides of the bridge from washing out, like has happened to us at Mill Street multiple times? Would it be trying to prevent that at the expense of more water backing up? That was my question.
We were envisioning installing the sheet piling in somewhat of a U pattern, if the river was ever to migrate in the future, but in the Mill Street location, it's not prone to channel migration so much as Brook Road.
It sounds like it's been considered, Don.
I'm not. I asked my question. I got the answer I'm getting, but that didn't sound reassuring to me at all. I wasn't talking about stream brook migration. I was talking about like a flooding event and flooding of the village versus losing the road temporarily, which we all know how to do. But Okay,
We're
not
raising the-
reassuring, thanks.
We're raising the roadway 2 to 3 feet, and in doing so, we'd be creating low points on either side for the tie-in. So at a certain level, the water would be flowing across the roadway
Around,
during
yeah.
a certain storm
Oh.
event.
Okay, thanks. That's more reassuring.
We're not damming up
Yeah, the cross-section is much larger than the previous constructions.
Just to give you a comparison, I've walked, like, when in a low water situation, I walked underneath the Brook Road Bridge, and I was standing on solid ground with a little bit of water, and I was like this and trying not to bang my head on the beams, whereas we're gonna need something, I don't know what, but, yeah, so that's gonna be, we're going from this to that.
And also
And 55 feet
wider
long.
Yeah.
And-
span.
Yeah,
We're
on a
going to have
wider,
bigger opening.
much wider opening.
Okay, thanks, that answers my question.
Another thing, and this might be opening a can of worms, is I spoke with V-Trans this morning, and everyone is concerned with, the hydraulic opening and the flow rates. If the town wanted to consider a larger, clear span, V-Trans may be open to it. There's a little bit of a problem though, because we're about maxed out with the superstructure depth. So if you did want to go to a larger span, you might need to change the superstructure recommendation, which would change the profile potentially, and it would potentially get more costly.
You gave us a span of right now what the bridge has had that backed up.
24.
24, so 55 is more than twice.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been waiting, Arian.
I just would recommend that, I think it's worth looking at this design alternative. I had a substantive question that was similar to the one that you brought up, Carl, and if the design flood is a 50-year flood, and we've had the last 2 years have been over 100, it would seem that we should maybe consider a different design flood possibility.
Mhm. Yep.
Although we're calling it a Q50, I mentioned earlier, there's a factor of safety in there, and the flow rate that our hydraulic consultant estimated at for the confidence interval was 2,800 cubic feet per second. The July 2024 storm events, state agencies said that was around that same flow rate.
Okay.
2,800, 3,000, 3,200 CFS.
Yep. I think it's the debris that worries everybody, and we will get debris next time, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the opportunities we have with the new layout of the brook and things upstream from that, we have the ability to create more floodplain upstream. So some of the projects that we're going to talk about in the future can have a component where we're looking at allowing the water to spread out more, before it gets to that location. And so unfortunately, because we're at the mercy of the municipal assistance service from V-Trans, we can't have a one big project day, which would be great because it's all the same water. But my anticipation is that when we get to this point in those projects, will show that we can create more area for the water to spread out upstream
And slow down.
and thus slowing it down.
Yeah.
And inches of floodplain restoration will prevent feet of flooding. And that's been the thing that I've really taken home from so many of these, watershed conversations, and that, you and I went to, Carl, for the Winooski collaborative. That was one of the things they stressed was floodplain. And I think in the immediate adjacent project, that's where we're going to be sort of looking at what is the constriction of the roadway doing in that location? So that's kind of one of the next projects that will come up. How to prevent that channeling, which accelerates the water too.
And does the most damage, yeah. Yeah, Lou,
Do
yeah.
I need that?
Speak up.
Yeah, I think it's probably better for the folks in line.
Louis Scott, do you guys anticipate places that you're gonna have for the water to spread out?
Yeah, there are, you know, in the areas where, between, you know, in the locations near where Ernie Gray's is, where it's created that large floodplain, and then the bridge there, created a constriction point, and the, where it makes that hard turn at Cameron Road to go around, one of the options, and I'm not the designer, so I can't really say, but is sort of changing how the road is in relationship, and then whether or not to even, you know, if we go with a road realignment, and this is getting off topic, but would present options to kind of create more space for the brook to breathe.
So if one of the places is where Ernie Gray's is, does that mean that you will not be fixing the remainder of the road?
We will. We need a road. It's very important because we only have the one now. And so, like, absolutely, we're going to put a road in. It's just a question of like, it's probably not feasible to put it where it was. It would be realigned in, you know, up away from things. But I can talk to you further about it.
Yeah,
Make
I don't
sure
wanna-
these guys get.
I don't want to take too much time on that, but it's all being considered. Any other thoughts here?
I guess the question do we take a vote on this tonight, or if we don't, what happens between now and 2 weeks from now that would change how we would vote tonight, I guess?
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable a little more time personally, but I don't
Same.
want
I'd
to,
like
I
to
don't want to
re-
delay things.
I'd like to revisit it on the 27th.
Okay,
If I revisit,
I guess
You're
I'd like to
No,
sleep on it.
I'm asking, I'm fine with whatever. So folks are going to review all the materials, like, we're not gonna have a whole other presentation on the 27th, we're just gonna have a short discussion and a vote.
Would you send a copy of this presentation to us, please?
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was particularly interested in the side-by-side slides where you know, ended up with the one at the bottom of each, what the pros and cons were. So
Yeah.
that's good.
We'll skimp on that a little bit.
And I should say, I support these plates that you put in the ground that are permanent. What was the term? The permanent?
Or sheep house.
Yeah, the permanent sheet piles. I think the bridge on Brook Road, our newest bridge that went out, was because the supports were undercut. And so the sheet piles would prevent some of that, I would think. But there's a lot of little things like that I'd like to have a little time with.
Are sheet piles what they used here at the
Yeah.
band by Route 2?
Yeah.
And the grouted soil nails?
Where the slope is failed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they interlock, and
Yeah.
they drive them in, and,
Yeah, they have knuckles, so you drive one sheep into the ground, you put another one into the knuckle and drive that down too.
yeah, and so they're bonded, and you're talking about an additional frame around the top to keep them all together.
Yep.
All of which, is that part of that's part of what you would recommend?
Yeah,
And that's just going down to the, what do you call it, like that scour line at 12 feet or whatever it was?
you'd want to put it below that, so that theoretically you'd be designing that sheet pilings, assuming that all that scour is gone. So you want the sheets deeper than that, so that when it does, all that stuff does disappear, that it loses its support at the top, it'll still have that theoretical support.
I guess, typically, I think it's 1/3 exposed, 2/3
Two-thirds,
in the
yeah.
ground. So if we're down 6 feet and we need to allow for another 6 feet or more, so we're talking 18 feet driven from top of footing down to
Yeah.
depth and maybe slightly longer.
And that's one of the things, where whalers come into consideration, that, you know, if you consider the design of a whaler at the top, that's providing support for your wall, so you might not need to go as deep.
Yeah.
You know, but the convention is, you know, a cantilevered wall, a freestanding wall, it's 2/3 in the dirt, 1/3 above.
Yeah.
Whereas you can sometimes, usually reduce that with a steel whaler up top.
Well, we're very appreciative of you coming and talking to us about this, and it's obvious you've done a lot of work, and you have recommendations for us. But I think I'd like personally to just have a little time, and just decide to vote on the next meeting. Do we agree to that?
That's fine.
I'm not trying to be pushy with the recommendation, it's only that you might be aware, there is a deadline that we are under the gun to complete our services by.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying that.
Can we wait 2 weeks to vote?
I don't know, a lot of the heuristics around, you know, why this or that, like, one of the big things is because of the location and the consecutive nature of the bridges, a lot of that decision tree collapses to, you know, we need to make something that's buildable, fairly easy to put up, where you were speaking to, like, you know, who is gonna bid on it, who do we have available to build it? And so that's what kind of collapsed that decision matrix, is like, you know, yes, like, I mean, there are other things that are more costly, but really, I think when we get into like looking at some of this, it's just it's the nature of like, you know, we didn't look way outside of the right of way, even though we have all the buyouts. And we need something that can go fast so we can do one after the other. And we need something that, you know, we need to have a plan. So like, that's kind of those are sort of the things that are driving into the recommendations, is like, what can we get done and designed efficiently and quickly? And so like, I don't really think that, like, and the recommendations in some regard is like also the cheaper options, with maybe one exception, but and so that part too, like, you know, the recommendation is the less costly option as well. So I think like, I'm comfortable with the recommendations, and I've been, you know, like looking and through the reports, and so I think it's a good alternative recommendation. I think what they are recommending is appropriate.
It sounds like you think we shouldn't wait 2 weeks. What are we gonna learn in 2 weeks?
I don't think there's, you know, even if like we kind of go back and look at it and say like, well, we like this other idea more, you know, those reasons not to go for some of those other alternatives is really down to getting things over the line quickly.
Let me ask this question. If we were to give the go-ahead, whether tonight or in 2 weeks, and say, yes, we like your recommendations, what does that take off the table in terms of any other options to us? What does it then box out?
I kind of mentioned this a few moments ago. We are proposing a slab deck, or that deck slab. If you wanted to talk to V-Trans and get a quick approval to go to a longer span, I don't know if we could do that for that superstructure.
Because you're kind of at the limit of that
So
design.
you might want to go to our next ranking, which was that next team, that double T beam,
Yeah,
which would have a higher.
more footing, more expensive.
Slightly more
and heavier.
expensive.
But are we locking ourselves into any of the traffic control alternatives by saying, yes, we want to go with this design model?
If you gave us the go-ahead tonight, I'm just thinking out loud, I think we'd get started on planned production tomorrow. we'd probably start figuring out, formalizing the roadway profile and drafting in plan view and coming up with either a roadway template or a model for ourselves, coming up with some details. I think there's certain things that we could get done, started right now that don't matter about your decision. But it comes down to the superstructure, the substructure type. If it's, depending on the traffic control, we might come up with a detour package plan that would develop showing all the, detour this way, detour that way. But some of these things that you're still deciding on, I think we could delay it being worked on.
But if we gave the go-ahead, you would be able to get started on certain things tomorrow, if you got the go-ahead tonight.
I think we're limited though. We're limited in what we can do. As soon as you give us the go-ahead for which type of superstructure you would like, I would starting a formal profile plan.
VHB person is
Yeah.
raising his hand. Evan?
Evan?
Yeah, hi everyone. Just wanted to let you know that Du Bois and King prepared the alternatives analysis in a draft form and that was provided to VHB. So I, along with a bridge engineer in our office, peer reviewed the work that Du Bois and King did. And with the updates that they made in the presentation tonight, we're all in agreement that what they've proposed tonight is the best option for the town. It will work hydraulically, and it's the lowest rise in elevation with the shallow beams. And because of the very erodible soils here, scour is a big concern, so they've addressed that with these sheet piles to protect the bridge. And as far as VHB's perspective on this is, it's a good decision that D&K has made for their recommendation, and we would recommend that the board can go ahead forward with the project. That would be our recommendation.
Okay, thank you. That's important to know. We're just seeing it kind of for the first time. So
Yeah, sure.
a little
Yep.
overwhelming.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, they're not operating in a vacuum. It has been peer reviewed.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I just say, obviously, the engineering firm is looking at it, our project management is looking at it, a town staff member has looked at it. I personally don't know, I mean, I think traffic control, which is gonna happen in spring of 2027, we can figure out in the future. I don't know, it actually seems like looking at the maps, I'm not real sure that the amount of hassle it would take to do one of the other traffic control methods would be worth it. So to me, I'm perfectly comfortable going with the triple checked experts on this, and I don't know what more we would learn or figure out in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's worth a delay in their ability to do the work. That's my opinion. So I would be willing to vote tonight, but
Okay.
that's just one opinion.
I go along with Dan with that. I feel like you guys did all the work
Yeah.
and figured out a recommendation for us that would work. And I feel like I'm comfortable going along with that too.
I'm fine with it.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Now,
Go ahead.
all right, I was just gonna say, I'm happy to make, or you can make a motion. Do we have to put the technical terms of the recommend, or just say go with the recommendation? I just want to make sure we have the motion proper. I think we can just say go with the recommendation.
S5 and F1B.
All right.
Just to confirm,
Then if you want to make a motion, that would be great.
you had mentioned that there was some relative similarity in cost between the steel footings and the shallow concrete with the metal box. The metal box, shallow concrete is the recommendation?
Shallow spread footings, sheeting, permanent
Yes,
sheeting
okay,
at the
just
toe of the
making
footing.
sure. Thank you, yes.
You're going to go in consideration, are you?
Where's it going?
I'm just gonna say motion to approve the proposal from the Boys and King for Bridge 21 and the Mill Street Bridge. Do we need anything more than that? I'm looking at Josh.
Second.
All right.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? say aye.
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 And Peter
And
Youngbear
Peter
is
said
also an
yes.
aye.
So we have a
Thank you, guys.
decision to move ahead, and I appreciate, again, all this work
Thank you,
you've done.
thank you.
And Ethan, thank you.
Indeed,
Adam,
thank you.
For your input. And Josh.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Town clerk report.
This can kind of slide back down. He didn't hear you. Now try. He didn't hear you. Try again.
Bram, did you have the town clerk
Oh,
report?
yes, town clerk's report. I'm going to make this pretty brief.
Thanks.
The election is November 4th. There's a little bit of confusion because the state had mailed out absentee ballots to everyone. That's not the case in this election. If you're interested in an absentee ballot, you can either contact the clerk's office or go to, I think it's online. They're on our website. It gives detailed instructions if you want to register online. I would also just on a couple of other town matters. Two members of the three-person cemetery commission are leaving. So just a shout out, if anybody's interested in stepping up, we really need support in that department. In addition, it would be great to get a zoning administrator in training. There is compensation with that. If anybody's interested, please let me know. Those are two areas that we really could use help in. That's it for me.
Thanks, Bram. I hope we can get that word out too, because there's a lot of help needed there. Okay, constable report.
Hello. In the interest of keeping it brief, because I know the bridge discussion went on long, were there any questions on this report I submitted to you in writing? I know we went back via email.
It was very thorough. Can you, we do have someone here who lives on Brook Road near the site that you've been monitoring. And can you give us anything new there that was not on the report?
So with the situation on Brook Road, it leads into one of the major things I want to talk about is differentiating what should be reported to me and is a constable matter versus what should be relayed to Vermont State Police. So to clarify, Vermont State Police is the responding agency for Plainfield. The sheriff's office provides patrol, but they are not the response agency for reports. So the thing with Brook Road, things are escalating. Bram and I both get emails of additional stuff, and we keep telling the people, understood, please report to Vermont State Police and let us know, date and time that it's been reported, because those calls is what generates a response. So when I call and talk to the patrol sergeant and I go, hey, there's been 7 reports about X, what's going on with that? Oftentimes when I call with an issue after directing people to call VSP, it's the first time they've heard about it. So they can't act all that much on secondhand information, even if it's coming from me. So I highly encourage people, if it involves criminal activity at a misdemeanor or felony level, call and report to Vermont State Police.
Dan, can people do that anonymously?
Yes, they can.
Okay, that's important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand if you live nearby, not wanting to get caught up, I definitely don't blame you. You can report anonymously. They also have a submit a form to make a report on their website, which you can do. So if somebody wants to send that to me via, a generic email or even a text message where I don't know the number on the other end, so I don't know who it is. So it's fairly anonymous, and I have enough going on where I'm not going to reverse Google search to find out which concerned citizen sent me a report. But those things then give me a leg to stand on, so I can follow up with VSP, say, hey, I'm tracking, there's been 7 reports about this issue from this date to this date. This started on this date. Things are escalating. Can we please get more of a response?
Yep, okay, yes. Peter,
Dan,
and then-
in your conversations with Vermont State Police, and I don't know what kind of detailed information they're sharing with you, but I'm just wondering, based on what you know in your conversations with them, would it would you recommend that the select board request an executive session with someone from Vermont State Police to get an update?
Let me reach back out to their patrol sergeant. I had sent an email late last week. I haven't heard back, so I'm going to try to reach via phone and see, hey, what reports have you guys been getting? The last time I checked, had not received any direct reports, just my relaying of the situation. So I will check in and follow up on that. Unfortunately, I can't tell you about that particular situation. That's not one where I'm gonna go make that contact in person. One, because I have no authority to affect any of those things, especially when you deal with criminal activity at that alleged level. Two, it's not safe. I wouldn't recommend anybody do it. We have state police, that's what they're there for. But going back to that, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if there's enough of a volume, even if it's the same person continually reporting, it does drive a response. You gotta remember, VSP has a very large area to cover and a lot of towns without police forces that they are responding to. So I would highly, highly recommend make as much noise as possible.
Dan?
So at this property, right, Dan, there's stuff that you are tracking, drug use potentially, firearms, things like that. Then there's the campers being on the property, it's private property. I'm guessing that it falls into the same rule as the Bean Road rule, which is like, I don't know how many months that is. They're allowed to have campers on property up to a certain number of months.
6 months.
6 months, so the campers themselves, as long as they're on the private property, if they're on the road, that could be a different case, but if they're on the private property, we can't do anything for 6 months. And then there's the wastewater issue, if there's a pipe going to the brook, the state won't look at it, is there a public health officer, someone else who can look at that? It's layers of things, right, like not all of these are the same purview, the same. I'm just wondering if, like, it sounds like Dan's doing everything we can on that piece, and we can't really do anything about the campers until 6 months if they're on the private property. I guess it just leaves with
Yeah.
maybe I don't know if, and Graham may know, I don't know if Graham's still with us, if Jody or there are other things that we can do around this property. Obviously, we would want Jody or others to go with VSP or sheriff deputies to do any of that stuff
Yeah.
because of safety issues.
Yeah, they can't go by themselves. Do you know anything about it, Bram?
Well, I will report what Louis said regarding people directly discharging into the stream, and perhaps that will motivate the water enforcement people. I must say that the state severely underfunds. I mean, the guy went into a whole big thing about how in terms of his enforcement, his budget is exponentially smaller and he has to cover so many more. So I'm fighting an uphill battle, but I will report to him tomorrow that there's an additional camper and that there's stuff going right in the stream. I've mentioned this situation to Jody, but I also warned her not to go down there, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Dan, do you have further information on other subjects?
On the other side, yeah. Once again, the park and ride and camping issues, that was resolved. We had folks that have been there before that have always been polite and respectful. They reached out to me, said, hey, we're gonna be there for, X amount of days, and then we're leaving to head south. Cool, appreciate it. Some other folks showed up with 3 campers and other things, and they were not as polite of guests. Litter, refuse, loud dogs, verbally harassing residents, people not feeling like they could make use of their property outside due to noise and negative interactions with the people. Luckily, I was able to have that conversation, serve them written notice via the parking ordinance, pay 72 hours, and due to that conversation, which I shared more details with you, VSP ended up getting involved to further make my point of, yeah, this isn't the place you should be. Also with the 10 gentlemen camping at the Mill Street Park, it feeds into the larger discussion, and I know we're working on a camping ordinance and stuff like that. I did take the liberty of looking further into a mechanism for some additional enforcement in the form of how the no trespass process works in Vermont, where that's not a blanket, you can't trespass on public land. There's specific circumstances such as public nuisance, noise issues, health and safety, threatening other people or otherwise unsafe behavior, where if the town owns the property, they can issue a written notice to that person that they are not able to trespass, and that can be served by law enforcement and enforced by law enforcement. So through my research, I put together a kind of an overview and a draft policy, along with the written notice forms and the enforcement mechanisms that's all cross-reference, not just with Vermont statutes, but also relevant case law from around the US. So I will be getting that to the select board next week to take a look at. It's not one of those that would substitute a comprehensive thing of what do we want to do as a town with regard to camping, because things are tough, I get it, but it does provide a mechanism when we have folks who are taking advantage of that and providing or presenting a safety or health or otherwise threat where they're not being good stewards of the public space.
Okay, well, great.
Thank you, Dan.
And that, the fun continues.
Yes, well, thank you very much for your work. We have the EVAC report. Is that you, Liz? Go ahead.
Oh my goodness, I've gotten so lost in your meeting that I forgot what I was here for. So thanks for having me, and I'm sorry I'm not in person, but you know. So I think I'm going to start with the way our notes are being done in the past, and I think it was a request, we believe as a group, we believe that it was requested that the minutes have like a summary or something like that. So highlights were created in how the minutes were taken for our meetings. And that rose some concerns at our last meeting. The thinking behind having highlights in general tends to, the concern is it I can't say the word at the moment, editorializes the minutes. So if somebody just glances at the highlights, they only see what was chosen to be highlighted. And there was concern that the things that were being highlighted may not be what everybody thinks should have been. So anyway, after much discussion, we voted as a group to remove the highlights, but it then came up that we thought that request came from the select board, so we won't remove them. Well, we did for this last bit of this last minutes, but if the select board prefers us to continue to have a summary or highlights of some sort, then we will do so and we'll figure it out. But if you guys don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, if we could eliminate the highlights, I think it would please our group.
Go ahead, Dan.
But we'll
Yeah.
do what you want.
Yeah.
Just a sec, Liz.
So I think the thinking was for the summary, I don't know that it was meeting specific, is you all come one time a month to report to us, and what we're asking for the town clerk, the constable, everyone, is before, the Wednesday before the meeting, a summary of what you're gonna present on. So not a summary of every single thing that you've done, but a summary on what the presentation to the select board is going to be. And so I don't know how you all,
Oh.
what the presentation to the select board will be in these things, but the idea was then we would have it ahead of time. We could look at them, and then if we had questions, or we could lessen the amount of needing to like just read through a list of things that have happened, and we can really dig into certain issues. So that was the summary request, not
Gotcha.
meeting specific, but monthly specific for reporting.
Gotcha. All right. Well, look at us misunderstanding our direction. All right.
So I
Well,
don't know, yeah, I don't know what process you all use, Liz, to decide what gets reported to us on a monthly basis, but if there's like you've decided what you're gonna report, if you just send us that ahead of time, that's pretty much all we need.
okay. Gotcha. Understood. All right. So there was that that I wanted to bring up. One of the other big things that we wanted to bring to your attention is, you know, the list of deliverables that you were expecting from our group, and there were a number of them. Meant to grab my sheet that spelled that all out just so I'd have it for reference for my own sake. But we reviewed together that list, and we discovered that a lot of what was asked for us to do was done in the work of applying for the grant, the CBDG DR grant. So we will be going through, well, the chairs will be reviewing that grant, pulling out the pieces, and kind of writing a report based on all the things that are in the things that you've asked us to do and to look into, and where to find it in the grant. And then there are some things that still need to be discussed and looked into further. And the three that we pulled out were the public feedback on designs, public and I think it was actually public and professional feedback on designs, the lot sales and pricing plan. We still have to dig into that a little bit more. And then, of course, permitting applications, and we need to finalize the design and then start the permitting, at least getting that lined up. So that was a bit of a discussion, but we will be getting the select board something tangible that you can review and see where we've gotten to this point, because we do understand that this group is supposed to, have an end time, and that's what we're working towards. And the other thing I wanted to bring to you guys is that we discussed shifting our committee, our advisory board meeting to once a month for October and November, instead of twice a month, while we wait for the results of the grant. And the subgroup work will continue. But as far as meeting as a whole group, we were thinking meet once in October, once in November, and then resume twice a month in December. And then the other thing we talked about that I wanted to bring to your attention was the the paper ballot, or not paper ballot, but the it's actually on your agenda, sending out information through the mail, and we support that.
Okay, great.
And
Liz,
go ahead.
Liz, you mentioned public and professional feedback on the design. You said that's still being worked out. You're still kind of creating a process for that to happen, or did I miss the content there?
Yeah, no, that is I mean, there was the initial discussion around the design that we've been working from all along, but we haven't had an official opportunity for the public or anybody to look at what is now the design with the different changes, like the drive is different. The new proposed drive is moved down on East Hill closer to Main Street Extension. There was some accommodations made for wetlands and the buffer zone. So so there were some changes that have
Understood.
happened.
And I guess those are the changes that have already happened. And I guess I'm wondering, is there going to be a forum or a time for community members, professionals, as you say, to offer additional feedback from this new place of like present design?
So that is my, yes, that is my understanding that, because we haven't offered an opportunity and that is part of our directive. So I don't know, we didn't get into the discussion around that. We just highlighted that as something we haven't done in the list of things that we were required to do.
Great,
So,
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, that's great. And thank you, Dan, for the clarification on what we're after here.
yeah, thanks, Dan.
Next item is the authorization of the paper mailing on the bond authorization. Some folks can't access format of email or whatever, so we wanted to consider mailing. And we want to decide whether it's we mail to everybody or we mail to those who request it, or how, but we do want to decide tonight.
No, I can offer any framing, because I think if it's an investment of about $1,000, near as we can tell, to do a direct mailing that is a bond vote explainer to the entire town. We've received a large volume and a high volume of feedback about excluding particularly elder members of our community who are not on the mainstream digital channels that most of the rest of the town is on. And so they are seeing these announcements, they are seeing the conversations. So how to bring in the attention of those who are just more removed physically, digitally, or analog, I suppose, from the functions of the town, so as to be able to include them in the democratic process that is this project and that is this town. It is not reasonable to do a $1,000 mailing every time there is a question or a comment. And so the idea has grown to stack functions whereby one side of the mailer, it would be like a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. One side is the bond explainer, and the other side are instructions about how to get in the channels of support that we do offer as a town for folks. The town office and the select board keep a list of folks who get direct mail when important things come up from people who have requested that. A very small number of people have requested that. We believe that there are probably more. And so this mailer would be both a bond explainer and an opportunity to grow that list that is intended to be only for those who really need it, not to have our town staff, stuff envelopes for people who just don't want to check their email, but for people who really need that. Meanwhile, over and above an additional staff function, the accessibility committee has been trying to reach those members of our community who have special access needs that are unknown, and they can't be reached because we don't know who they are. The accessibility committee doesn't know who they are. An additional staff function on the flip side of the bond explainer would be directing contact from any of those parties to the accessibility committee so that they could be in direct contact and share more specifically about the kind of access needs they're working with.
That's pretty well explained. So is there any other discussion here?
I would just jump in. This is what the last version, I think, of what you prepared, which is the mailer. And it looks like it's designed to fold in half rather than a tri-fold, because that's the accessibility piece on the back.
I think it's gonna be more expensive to mail something that's a half fold rather than a tri-fold. And so I guess I wonder, I don't mind if there's a fold in the middle of the.
Yeah, I mean, having done bulk mailings, when you do this, you have to have 2 circles on one and one on another. They have to be sealed in order to go through the mailing machines. So I'm not sure what the tri-folds are, but I think it's only a 1 sticker.
Okay.
And so, that's gonna have to be different. We also had some feedback about the contact information, and we had suggested, there are people who are interested, they could call the town office. Town office staff said they don't want to answer these calls. They don't want to answer the questions. And I said, don't answer the questions. You can pass the questions on to us, but receive the message. But we could drop the phone altogether and just have attention, Alicia Weiss, P.O. Box 217, the town office.
This
and
is
just
for the
collect.
accessibility piece. If you
Which
look
is,
in the
which is the
inside,
back.
yeah, but there's a phone, this is the phone number they're talking about.
It's the same number.
Oh,
That's
is
the
it?
town
Yeah,
office.
that's the town.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they mean that for the accessibility piece as much as they mean it for the EVEAC piece. I mean, I wonder, there's definitely an EVEAC email. I think the whole point is if somebody has accessibility issues, then they're gonna wanna call a phone number. I don't know that the EVEAC has a phone number.
This is a mailing from the select board, not the EVEAC.
No, I know, but we have to decide who we wanna answer questions, and we're being told by our office staff that,
They don't want to answer.
well, that they don't
Well, they
want the questions to come to them. They don't wanna have to deal with sorting through that. I mean, I'm
I
just saying.
think, can I just interject here? I think that this is Bram Tobin, the town clerk. There are a couple of issues regarding why the town office doesn't want to answer these questions. One is that because I myself am an interested party, I think it's best to avoid calling the town clerk's office about this issue. Now, as Peter is saying, you wouldn't have to answer the question, you can just direct. Well, we get a fairly large volume of phone calls and are pretty busy. Why not create a Google number and basically monitor the answering machine? You and the accessibility committee could monitor the answering machine and then contact those people directly.
Doable?
I mean, so
In other words, you can create a phone number through Google that has like an answering machine. And so the people can look at the mailer, and if you have an accessibility question or about the other project, you can specifically say what it is. It can be monitored by somebody from the committees that have the answers to the questions. It's not about not wanting to do the work or answer the question. It's about having the people get directed to those people, and what's the most efficient way of doing that?
No, that's a good idea, Bram. Doable?
I mean, it seems simpler to have folks direct mail than P.O. Box. We said for the Accessibility Committee, care of Alicia Weiss, the chair of the Accessibility Committee. We could also direct mail care of
Select board.
Select-Board.
And
I mean,
just drop
the
the phone off.
The problem is just like speed, because all of our mail is going to Boston and coming back.
What?
So, yeah, based on the way the post office works now. So like if I mailed you something, Francis Rose, it would go all the way out of state, 2 states over and come back. That's how it works. And so if someone wants to get an answer to a question and it's, 5 days before the election, who knows when we would get it in the office to actually then be able to answer their question. And I know I've also heard of many people who've started to lose mail. So I just don't know if that's like the only choice is not the most reasonable choice right now in the current atmosphere we're in. So I do think we need to have an email. My thing, and we can always try to fix this, I just tried to set up a Google Voice right now, Bram, and it says my system administrator hasn't allowed that permission for our select board email, Gmail. So there's something we have to do in the back end. So it's a possibility, but we don't actually, like last time I tried to do it with a different Gmail, account, it said that there were too many voice numbers and they weren't letting me do it. So I don't know if it's a 100% thing.
Dawn has a hand up.
Oh, yeah, Don.
Hi, I've seen the back of this mailer, like Francis sort of shared that with me in the accessibility committee over email. I don't know what the front looks like, but the back, I mean, it's looking for directing people to call the town clerk's office. That looks like it's that's if you want to be included on either of these two mailing lists. And I guess my question is, does the town office staff feel that they have the capacity to take, several names to be included on a list? Like questions about the vote is a whole other thing, but as far as the like gathering addresses for snail mail or for accessibility outreach, that seems like that would just be someone just leaving their name and address.
Well, I don't know if there's a more efficient way of doing that. I don't know. I mean, in terms of what Dan was talking about with Google voicemail challenges, I would only say that this issue came up before when we had a emergency alert system. And under the emergency alert system, you were required to call the town office. And unfortunately, that triggered 200 people one day calling the town office. And the solution to that was I did it on my own thing and set up a voice mailbox to direct that. Perhaps we could set up a Google Mail account where people can email if they want to be on an email list. I think it's best to do these things the most efficient way possible. That's all.
Well, I mean, the whole point behind it, so there's two ones. There's questions about the EDAC, and then the bond vote, and then there's the accessibility. The whole point on the accessibility question is that these are people that don't use technology, and so setting up a way for them to email to get on a paper list when they don't use technology doesn't make much sense. So I think that's going to have to be a paper opt-in or a phone call opt-in, just based on the nature of that.
So I want to agree with Dawn that there exists a spreadsheet where the folks who are simply not online, not a part of the digital world, the town office and the select board manage this spreadsheet. It does make sense to me that someone should be able to call the town office and simply have their name and contact information input on the spreadsheet, done completely. And then there remains the lingering question of who is the contact for the bond vote questions. And I'm seeing Charlie with hands up.
So I think the answer is either, because we have the website, people can go there, is we just give people the email on this, because the front part of this is not solely about accessibility, it's about information about the vote.
That's true.
For the general population.
That's true.
And there is an EVAC email, and if they ask you questions that the EVAC chairs don't feel comfortable answering, they can always send it to the select board, to ask one of the select board members to answer. I'm looking at Arian, who's one of the chairs that's sitting here. That seems like the easiest way, and just taking a phone number off of that piece. It does seem like we need to have the town phone number for the accessibility piece. And I do have something to say about the actual physical mailer.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is the first I've heard of this accessibility email thing, and I really don't appreciate being sandbagged like that. I just want to say that. So
Brent,
do what you want. That's fine. That's fine.
This actually came from a request from Carol, who asked that we email or we send more people physical mail when they need it, and we make sure that we're getting to everyone, and that we get requests from people to mail things. And this is a offshoot of that conversation with Carol, to us actually being as accessible as possible to the rest of the town. There's no sandbagging going on. This is literally a conversation that's been happening over the course of months.
Well, I haven't heard it. Thanks.
Can we, we're supposed to be voting on this tonight. So what was your thought about this?
Well, it's just, so when you do a trifold, right? Like wherever you want to put the information, you have to keep it to that, because the middle of the trifold is the mailer. Like they have to put your name and whatever.
Right.
You can't have printing that's not the mailing on that.
Yeah.
So you would have to just shorten the accessibility piece so that it fits.
Or maybe we do the half fold like.
Well, I don't know how much, I don't know what the cost difference is.
Neither do I.
But yeah, that's the only thing, like usually with the mailer. So you'd have to just have either this side, or more likely you'd want it this side, anyway.
Charlie?
Yeah, this is slightly tangential, but I'm wondering if there's any movement to have an informational meeting before the Australian ballot that is required in some circumstances. That would maybe replace some of the need for the mailer. It would maybe be another opportunity to involve the public.
We hear you. I don't know if people have the capacity for more meetings. We've,
Wait, didn't we have to, we should look at the warning. I think there might be a hearing on the schedule already.
there might be, I
Day
think there's a
before the
hearing.
vote? I think the day before the vote or 2 days before the vote, there's a hearing.
Yeah, there is a
Listed.
hearing, yeah.
The thing is, people are voting now.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If the
Yeah.
hearing, people won't hold on to their ballots all the way until that point. But we've already noticed, we've already warned the hearing.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back to our warning to see what, I think it's down posted at the door here, but.
And for those who aren't tracking the regular channels of hearing announcements, they're gonna miss it.
Yeah,
And also on process, I want to say that we can authorize the mailer without having the language utterly finalized. We can continue to refine the mailer for the next few days, taking in the feedback.
yeah, being sensitive to the office calls and making sure that people have a way to reach somebody with for an answer. Yeah,
I thought I heard consensus that we should drop the phone number from the inside for the,
It's clear that the town office does not want to receive bond questions, and I
they don't want to receive bond
I
questions.
feel fine about
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
drop that, and we could put the EVAC's email in its place, which is
Okay.
on
yeah.
their website.
Again, this is a mailing from the select
Yeah.
board, not the EVEAC.
And so we're giving
And
them,
so why
we're
don't we
giving
tell
them,
people to
email you,
email the select board?
all five of us?
all-
No, we're not gonna put 5 emails on a piece of paper.
We don't have to put any on the piece of paper. You can say, go to the town website and email the select board person of your choice if you want.
But part of this is.
All of our emails are on the
Yes,
website.
but part of this is to try to make it as easy as possible for people who are not technically savvy as well. So to have them to go look on a website to find our emails rather than providing one.
Well, we could drop the whole last thing. It says, have any, ask questions,
we
just
could.
drop the whole last
We
thing.
could just say that there's information
So here's
on
some
the website.
information, period.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that's the easiest thing.
Yeah, I just think that, it's obviously our appointed committee, so I don't think it's a strange thing to, if we had a conservation question, it wouldn't be strange for us to say the conservation committee is somebody who you can get more information from. Like, I don't think
They
that'd
have
be
more
strange.
knowledge than we
Yeah,
do, yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to have a vote on this?
I'll make a motion to authorize the select board to send a direct mail informational, bond vote informational to the entire voting population of the town or all residents.
Voting population, and we should make sure we household it.
Yeah,
There's no reason for like me and Mo to get 2 and process twice
Right.
as much for the postage.
Can you phrase that?
yeah.
Well, you can
Did you
just,
just?
yeah, motion to select board.
And also, Plainfield residents, they need to be in voting residents and not mailing residents, because there are some people who live in Barry that get Plainfield mail, right?
I'm wondering if the town clerk's office has such a householded list already. Like, when we send out the town report, right, we don't get 2 at our house, we don't get 3 at our house, we get 1 at our house.
Right.
And so that must exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Oh.
just as for clarity, there are a number of people, I myself included, who don't have a mailing address in the town, who don't get certain mailings when they go through. There is a way of sending things to one address if the addresses match. That's true, but unfortunately, having a crystal clear map of who gets the mailings that are Plainfield residents and voters is not 100%.
Yeah. Did you make a motion?
I did make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Can I, since we're gonna mess with language anyway, I do think we should, instead of putting more questions, we give a number, we should just say more questions. There's going to be a hearing on whatever date. I mean, we have that date, it's down in the notice.
Yeah.
At a certain time, we should just put that information at the bottom. People could come to the hearing.
That's a good solution, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep moving, we're already past our time. Town treasurer report. Everything's cool, right?
Everything's great. We got so, as I said earlier, we have that first large payment from one project on Brook Road. There's 11 more to go, plus the funds that we expect to receive from FEMA and the emergency, the reimbursements for what is called Category B, which is the emergency phase work, the expenses that we've incurred for that, we should see back shortly. We have a new person at FEMA who we're working with who's been actually wonderful to work with. Really is moving things a lot faster and closing a lot of the loops that have sort of hindered some of our reimbursements. And I think in terms of like what I've seen on the FEMA portal, certain things are committed already. So it's like that money is essentially like waiting for it to come down. And then, so what that's going to allow me to do is to, we have a few things that have not been funded that were in the budget in fiscal year 25 that need to get funded in terms of reserves. So, we're waiting, essentially like this is the first step out of what is essentially the emergency still. This is the first step out of emergency like that we've had from a fiscal standpoint, which is like, thank goodness. But with that money comes other costs, one of which is we are required to have what's called single federal audit. And so the audit that, so I had put out a proposal RFP, because, and I've gotten two different stories about this and I haven't reconciled it. The state says that we need a single federal audit based on the date of the grant agreement. And the CPA who responded to the proposal didn't think that was correct. He thought that that was incorrect. It would be timed to
when the money arrives,
which would be this fiscal year, which would be much better for us because we can budget for that. So I'm gonna have to reconcile that. A couple of things that we're working on that are not per se directly related to the treasurer's role is we're doing some cost saving measures. Things are getting, we have a new internet and phone plan that we're negotiating with Spectrum, and Brand's taken the first part of all of that legwork, and then I'm just getting some of the things coordinated, but we stand to save, I think it's a saving of about $1,700 in the for what we are, what we're spending out on all the phone and internet for all of the locations. So and another piece that, let's see. Otherwise, it is kind of a bit of a quiet period in terms of the treasurer's work, because we're between the municipal and education tax collection, so my focus has been a lot on the roads and bridges and things.
Okay.
But I did forward that to you all, the proposal that came in, and we still have, I think, a couple of weeks to receive proposals for the deadline.
Yep.
Have you prepared a budget versus actual year to date through September 30?
Say again?
Have you prepared a budget versus actual year to date through September 30?
No, I'll probably put that together next time.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
There was, just to bridge the last conversation in this one, so we've just authorized the spending of upwards of $1,000 for the mailing. I said I would ask you about that. We can do that?
Yeah.
How is it paid for? What is the optimal way that it is, that money is delivered to? Is the bill just sent to you at the town office?
Yeah.
That's the direction?
Yeah, invoices at plainfieldvt.gov.
Thank you.
Okay. We're looking for a managed
I
position.
just want to
Oh,
say
yeah.
that number was per month. That's $1,700 a month.
Oh, that's important clarification.
So the new internet plan is saving us a considerable amount of money every month,
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
and better internet. Fiber here too.
Fantastic.
By the way, here's this.
Well
You just go
done.
in the yellow folder.
I'm sorry?
It could go in the yellow folder.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
This next piece is also you, Josh. You're the one who suggested this.
Oh geez.
The recovery and revitalization manager position. Do you want to speak to it?
So, like in kind of the amount of work, that is currently present in the office, a lot of the driver for that work is, each of these projects have their own grant, they have their own paperwork and their own path, and under normal circumstances, the role of like a road commissioner and grants administrator and the executive functioning of the various commissions and committees are more than enough, I think, to handle the town business. But over the next few years, what we're going to find is that this is only, this is just like the first part of this, but as things progress, we are going to have we're going to need the select board either to, authorize the creation of like this position that I'm proposing to essentially act as a town administrator, and you can put some constraints on that, relative to like the special recovery work, or another option would be just to create a town administrator position, and which would reduce the role of the treasurer considerably and would take some of the responsibilities, pulling responsibilities from the assistant treasurer, the town clerk, and the administrative assistant, and reshuffling. Now, I see like a lot of the driving action behind this being like what we're up against for the next 5 to 7 years. And so, under kind of typical Vermont town structure, in a town administrator position, essentially a town administrator is just the select board saying, you person, you are now here's a very like detailed list of what we are delegating to you to administer for us all.
Is there any way to chart this out? Because,
It's
you know,
all
you
very
have it in your
detailed
head, but we have no idea.
Well, in
what
the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, they have an explainer about the differences between town administrator structures, town managers, and they're very different in, in day-to-day practice are very similar, but in their authority, like, the town manager position would essentially take on a lot of the executive authority that the select board holds.
Okay,
Administrators are delegated that executive authority, and but it is really administrators those positions are designed specific to the needs of the town, and I would say that the the problem we're having is that we're running up against capacity, even with the addition of like a part-time position, splitting the treasurer. It's a matter of like, things like this here, expedite, he is saying, this is an example, right? Like this evening, he's like, 2 weeks right now is a lot of time and can spill into like a huge amount of delay downstream in terms of like moving these things forward. And it is within the power of the select board to create a paid position to do those things. So
that's why I say a chart, if we're gonna have to consider something like this, we need to see how that administrator would function. And you've told me about it, so I kind of have an idea, but.
And I would recommend that you all, get in touch with VLCT and talk about, like, there is the municipal, it is the
Okay, we could,
municipal assistant or municipal services, I don't remember.
Municipal Assistance Center.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And like, they can get into it more in depth, and, I'm sure that, we pay them dues for a reason. They can come here and explain it better than I can, or help the select board design a role. And, that's what I would say would be best.
Okay. We're really running late, and I don't wanna, go
I'll
ahead.
just say, definitely we should talk to Vermont League of Cities and Towns about just generally what administrators, there's some other towns that have administrators that we could talk to. I think from your perspective, Josh, what would be helpful, you said like, oh, this person can take some stuff off of the treasurer's load, some stuff off the road commissioner, some stuff off the grant administrator, some stuff off the assistant treasurer. What stuff? What are those things? In the way that we're working right now, and you don't have to answer tonight, what are the places we're hitting capacity? Who is hitting capacity? Which staff members? So what are those roles? I think we need more of a demonstrated need based on right now, and maybe showing how this new role will make the assistant treasurer's role more manageable, will make the treasurer's role more manageable, will make whoever's role more manageable. Like, I'm sure we could design all sorts of great things, but I'd like to do it based on where we're actually having friction points now, rather than like whatever else.
Yeah.
I would heartily second that. I had got an email from someone who was saw this agenda item and was asking about it, and I said, I don't know, I hadn't heard, some kind of a town administrator has come up with, talks with Karen Hatcher and whatnot and stuff. If we get the CDBGDR grant, we have a 5-year or 5 or 6 year funded project manager position to oversee that big thing. For each of these federal highway projects, there is a project manager. Evan Dietrich was here tonight, and I'm there like, okay, so where is the need? And just to use the ballpark number that was in the CDBG grant of $100,000 a year to support that position, I'm there like, if we were to ask the taxpayers to pay that, that's a 7.7% tax increase for that one position right there. I need to be convinced that we're either gonna find that money by taking it from existing positions, or find it by efficiencies that are gonna come from funding this, because we've already added another road crew person who wasn't in the budget this year, taking some from overtime and, you know, some reimbursements, but that has to be built into the base.
We haven't actually like had more than 3 people on at one time, so even though they're hired, it's like.
But they're authorized positions which are now in the base budget going forward. You made a good sales pitch there for why it's better to have 2 crews of 2 for safety reasons and otherwise out there and efficiency reasons. We need that same level of detail and defined need to go here, because, you know, Dan asked the question earlier about where's the $400,000 to $800,000 10% match coming for these things, and it's like, okay, maybe the first 800,000 is paid for, but for the other 12 projects, you know, that we're gonna be asking the taxpayers for as well. And so, you know, I think we need a much more defined need here.
Typically, a town administrator position, you know, they will take on all of the HR role, and
Which is currently the town clerk's role.
correct. And then a lot of the administrative work that I currently do would get pulled out. And my job description is for 32 hours a week. So, let me tell you, that does not happen. So, in the budget we wrote this year, we carried the budget at a higher level than what, you know, in a normal 32-hour week at my current hourly rate, like, we're not gonna spend that budget, right? But not knowing exactly what level of excessive work we're carrying. The other thing we lose, so like, you know, what we would need to budget for town clerk and town treasurer, and the treasurer's role could be is actually under this structure be very minimal. And, you know, so it would kind of flip the structure we have where instead of administrative assistant, you put the administrator at the top, and then you have the roles of.
Josh, you don't have to detail it tonight,
Okay.
okay? But I'm telling you, you know, there's a lot of work that
We'll
needs to
want
be done.
detail at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's also gonna be the budget defense moment, where we're coming on budgeting season, and so like making it also make sense.
Yeah, that's gonna be when the decision's gonna be made, if there's any kind of.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe incumbent upon us as a select board to figure out the piece you said, Josh, which is talk to other towns and talk to
VLCT.
But I think that since you are making the request and proposal, I think we just need to have something that shows like the need. And then obviously we're gonna have to, you know, in budget season, talk about our actual ability to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then is this something that's time limited to our recovery time? Is this a time limited position? Is this yeah.
I think that makes sense. And so we'll move on that, but we'll deal with it more during budget. Discussion about the disability insurance, is that something you want to talk about, or is that Bram?
Bram's got it, but Dan and I were also a part of the subcommittee that worked on it.
Oh, that's right, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Tell us about that.
This came up, and Bram, we had gotten initial quotes a couple of months ago, back in June, I think, from Madison National Life. And then
there's a revised quote as well.
Yeah, the original quote we had was for 9 town employees, and now it was 10.
Yeah.
And so the budget numbers went up just slightly. But there's a basic life and accidental death and dismemberment for 10 people, it's $1,260 a year. Long-term disability is $2,308 a year. Short-term disability is $1,745 a year. That's a total of $5,313. And this would go into effect January 1st, which is why the folks are pushing for a decision.
Right.
Now, so it can go into effect. Bram, I had a question, I don't know, do we have to pay 100% of the fee up front, or is it billed monthly or quarterly, do you know?
I assumed quarterly, but I will get clarification on that tomorrow.
Yeah, because if it is quarterly, then it wouldn't all fall, it would only half fall in this fiscal year.
Right,
Right.
I thought it was quarterly, but I will double check with them tomorrow. The other thing I just want to say is I have not gotten, it's tangential, but I haven't gotten the Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal numbers. And but we can expect a significant increase in overall health costs, as everyone should probably knows.
Yep.
Yep.
We're supposed to vote on this.
Josh, do we have this money?
Yeah.
Well, I would move that we offer these long-term disability and basic life, short-term disability for our 10 employees at a total of $5,313 a year through Madison Life.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Question, sorry.
No, I just want to thank Bram for not only bringing this to us, but continuing to stay on us until we had time to work on it, and then getting us new quotes so that we could have this ready to go in time for January 1st.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you too for being on the committee to work on that. Okay. We're gonna skip the road commissioner report. We said, well, we were gonna add the
The ADA paving? That's
oh, the
big
ADA
upfront.
paving.
Yes,
Isn't that kind of settled, or do we need to?
No, that is not settled.
Okay.
So this is about the handicap parking space
Right.
here at the Opera House.
Right,
It was installed by a private contractor who installed it not to spec,
right.
not to ADA spec, and not to the design specification that they were given, this contract. They're right now, so Michael Billingsley has been our point of contact to this private contractor. He has held back $1,500 they have not finished the work. They have not done what they were asked for. Meanwhile, though, they have also been non-responsive for over a month to fixing it, because that's the real ask. There was already like an awkward scene where someone in a handicap van pulled up and tried to get a wheelchair out, but it's not wide enough to do it.
Right, needs another 2 feet.
And so what Michael is asking us to do is to reach out to our town attorney to contact the contractor on the town's behalf to put more pressure on the contractor to fix it and make it right.
I'd be willing to connect to the town attorney if that's what the board wants to do.
I sent an email out to Michael and I hadn't received anything back. My question was there an actual contract with the town?
Give me a moment.
That's a good
Because
question.
the attorney would want to know that, I would think, right off
Yes.
the bat.
Yeah.
We'd have to send him the contract probably.
Yeah, or was it just,
Was it
can you
verbal?
do, yeah,
Yeah. Even if Michael said to the contractor, do it to ADA specs, that doesn't guarantee, that's not really a contract.
There was an architectural drawing, is my understanding, that the contractor was supposed to conform
Oh, well, if that's,
to.
That is true.
yeah, whatever written record there is, we're gonna need, so.
yeah. Well, let's,
So Carl, you,
yeah, I'll chase down Michael and I'll get in touch with the attorney if we get the information together, so we can give that to the attorney, if we want to proceed with the attorney.
I mean, does this need a motion, or is this just?
We're just gathering information right
Investigation.
now.
Yeah.
I think if there's a point where we have to file something or take an action, then we want to do an executive session and.
But a phone call to an attorney is not something we need to make a motion about.
No, I don't think so.
And we've called this person and given him time to make it right.
Emailed, yeah,
Correct.
I'm on at least one of the emails, so is Carl. 'Cause
Yeah.
as the president of Plainfield Arts, who oversees the building here,
Right,
I was on the email.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we won't, I'll follow up with the town attorney on this and just ask, once we get some information and ask what they would need too. I can just have a conversation with them.
And you could also ask Michael what's available.
And I'll
to
ask
share with the
Michael
attorney.
what he has, yeah.
Thank you, Carl, for
Yeah.
offering to do that.
Okay, from V-Trans, next steps to Route 2 intersection.
No, better connections.
Oh, I'm
Grant
sorry.
application for transportation.
Better-
pedestrian. I think there's an example of the letter we need to sign in the yellow folder in the left pocket. That Brand printed for us, I believe.
Yes, right.
It also requires a vote of the planning commission and the chair of the planning commissioner's signature. And I don't know if they're aware of that.
I can contact Will tomorrow and let him know if you guys pass it and sign it, I can get him in.
I also went on the website and
Hmm.
and looked up this grant, and I know you've been working in
Yeah.
some meetings, stuff like this. One of the questions that's on there is this a multi-municipal project? And because this talks about a connection to the new co-op location, I'm wondering if this is a Plainfield-only application, or whether, I mean, I could easily see us just asking East Montpelier for a letter of support and we'll do all the work,
Yeah,
type of deal.
I
But-
think we decided at one of our meetings, it is an interim municipal,
So they may need a resolution.
this?
There's
Yeah.
a deadline coming right up. So
yeah,
those are the two questions I have.
yeah.
For the public who don't know what we're talking about, we were approached by Rose Hall of the Conservation
Dan
Commission,
wants to-
who has offered to write a grant on our behalf to, it's a grant to study sidewalk, traffic calming, water management along the Route 2 corridor, all the way to the co-op. And yeah, and so I think the grant is due October 31st. We're going to be seeing this again come before us to formally approve it or not on the 27th. But this motion now is to activate, to let Rose Paul know that she has our support to petition for this grant.
Right, yeah, that's what she's looking for.
And her proposal was to take the match, there's like a 25% match, I think, required, and she's suggesting that comes out of the Conservation Commission's reserve fund.
Right.
And then the watershed, I'm not using
It
the
was
right
an
term.
additional 30,000.
30,000, which is unmatched.
Unmatched.
Right.
I mean, this to me sounds like an easy yes.
Would you,
Yes for now, it's like,
And did she volunteer to be the designated local project manager, the person with overall administrative responsibility for the program?
I believe she has.
well, she volunteered herself to write the grant. I don't know if
Oh,
if that includes,
This form is asking for us to designate a local project manager.
I guess maybe she's I don't know, if we tell her.
I know they're on vacation, she's on vacation right now, so
Oh,
she's
so we
not
can't get an
reachable this
answer.
week for her.
You can put me on there.
Yeah, our road commissioner would be a fine project manager.
Well, this is looking for the board to support her going for the grant, correct?
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
I make a motion, may I make a motion?
Yes,
To authorize Carl Bissix, board chair, to sign on behalf
I think we all sign.
of, we all sign?
yeah, it's also, everybody signs.
I guess
Just authorize that we sign.
I authorize that we sign this authorization to apply for the Better Connections grant.
I second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 So tomorrow I'll contact Will and get him to put it on the agenda for their meeting and so forth. Is that a good
Yeah, they have a
idea?
meeting on the 20th, I think.
Yeah. It could be helpful to get us more
Great.
connected.
I'll let him know. I'll send him a copy of the letter.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay. And what was the other, it was handy.
V-Trans now.
Okay, V-Trans, that's you and Patty?
Yeah. So I think we
Josh.
forwarded to you all the pictures that their traffic committee gave us. So this is part of the response that V-Trans came with their new project for the blinking light intersection. And they haven't yet to come back to us with any responses to the suggestions we've given to them on crosswalks and sidewalks and things like that. Patty Coburn did say that V-Trans has assigned a new person to oversee the 2029 paving project, and I couldn't find that email earlier today, so I don't have the guy's name at my fingertips. But she said he's getting briefed, and we'll hear from them once he's briefed and whatnot. In the meantime, they sent out their traffic safety people, and they did a study of all the signage along Route 2 from basically from the Goddard sign down to Maple Fields. And there's about 13 pictures that they gave us. I looked this over and I thought I didn't have anything that I disagreed with in here. I think it's fine.
Are these ideas that they would suggest, or these that
They
they think we should do?
This is their suggestions, so like, if I drove this the other day, and our road is actually pretty cluttered with signs, some of which aren't terribly helpful. And so they are saying, take some down, we can consolidate, the park and ride sign, the electric vehicle charging station, et cetera. The watch for turning vehicles is a sign that they use now instead of blind drive. They don't, it's like just some style changes. They also gave us 2 locations where we could put up those feedback signs, driver feedback signs. Now, those are something that we have to do as the town. I think we have to apply through the Regional Planning Commission and something or other, so those would be up to us, but the rest of them, I think.
But they've suggested locations.
Yes, they did, yeah. So I would, and she would like feedback so that they can get that done this fall before snow flies. So it's not going to change the intersection, but I think it'll improve the signage and safety a little bit.
And make it safer. And this is all from meetings that we had that they made these suggestions, so it's good, yeah.
So you two are
Well, and Josh,
okay with it,
yeah.
So we need to give them feedback to do they'll do some of these signs. The
only ones.
The electronic signs we would need to do.
We need to.
And so we would need to price those out, and
Yeah,
they're giving us the locations we should put them.
Yes.
We just need to actually pay for them and have our road crew put them.
There's a permit we have to apply for.
Okay.
So that's where regional planning is, it's a 111 permit or something like that.
That's great.
Yeah, so I would move that we approve their recommendations, and I will be
Second
happy
that.
to get in contact with Patty and let her know.
I second that.
moved and seconded, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can we say hooray?
Thank you too for
Yeah, indeed.
pushing on this,
Josh.
and we'll continue on it, but at least it's a
There's a
step.
lot more to go there.
Yeah, but it's a beginning, it's a start, it's like you're listening.
Well, it's a safety issue, and I
Yes,
appreciate that.
yes.
Municipal ticketing, I don't know if we want to, that was the next item. Is Bram still here? Yeah. Or not?
Yeah. What do you need?
Municipal ticketing underway, just progress on that?
I mean, I think we have to, getting back, we have to go over the ordinances, and we're working on that. That's the springboard to effectively having the municipal ticket. Once we get the ordinances in place, our people are all signed up and we have the books and all that, but we have to get the ordinances together.
And just an update on that.
Okay,
Bram did put together a draft on the traffic and parking ordinance. We have the current ordinance, and Dan Caddy said he was also going to do a draft. Basically, we need to go over that and, you know, crosswalk the three of them and see.
Okay.
But the gist of the ticketing is that you want to incentivize compliance. And so our current ordinance says, if you violate it, here's a fine, et cetera. What they want to do is basically say, but the fine's cut in half if you agree to just take care of it. And thus the legal stuff goes away and it keeps you out of court. And this is what the judge told us in the Bean Road thing, which is like, you know, get this thing, it should save us thousands of dollars in court fees and legal fees and years worth of time to have something like this works. Trevor Whipple, who works at the League of Cities and Towns, former Barry City Police Chief, came out. He's met with all of the 4 people who are proposed to have ticketing authority, and met with Bram and I, and we went over kind of stuff. I would say this, I'm available for the next 2 weeks to meet with Bram and Dan on this, and then I'm gonna be gone until November 21st, so anything else that happens, you guys are gonna have to pick that slack up. Who was it? Who's our town hall? Jody Velarde sent an email of trying to get, and I was pushing her to try and get something for before tonight or by our next meeting, and we'll just have to keep poking there. Peter Yassas sent something this afternoon. I frankly didn't have a chance to see what he said as the animal control officer. Bram's hope, I think, was to get the traffic and parking, the animal control, and the health officer stuff together, because we have to put in newspaper warnings of the proposed ordinances. We don't have to hold a public hearing, but we have to propose the ordinances, publish them publicly, and then we can adopt them as a select board. And if you look at our current ordinances now, the last paragraph says the town, up to 5% of the town can petition to actually have a vote on that. But if they don't, then it goes into effect. I think it's 60 days after we adopt. So that's the process for adopting or amending ordinances. So the big one is zoning ordinances, and that's a bigger lift. It's a much more complicated lift, because right now we have, you know, the same penalty for a sign that's a, you know, 1 square inch too big is the same penalty as building a house without a permit. You know, so you need to go through and kind of parse things out and make it a little more proportional in terms of penalties, but.
So you'll work on that as you can, but somebody else will step in.
Yeah, I mean, Karen Story has met with Trevor Whipple, but there's been no specific progress on that.
I'm remembering Bram speaking in the clerk report about the need to train up a new zoning administrator.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if, we could wrap these functions together.
That's a good point, yeah. A new person coming in would be great.
That's an excellent idea.
Well, and just on that subject, I mean, there were a couple other people Bram mentioned. We have other offices that are going to become open as of town meeting, and I'm wondering if we might not want to start some soft recruiting on the town website page. You know, we have a job opening listing or something like that, but.
I also want to point out that we're losing, Gary is not going to be a lister. He's one of our best listers. He's not going to sign up. And one of the reasons for that has to do with state mandated training, which is fairly onerous. But I really would be great to get people in the loop in the thing for being listers as well. And just for future reference, we ought to also consider the idea of, I can't remember the terms, but going from elected lister to appointed assessor. It's a higher bar, it's more expensive, but we might run out of people, so.
Okay,
You,
next
Peter, were
time.
just talking about utilizing the town website to kind of passively fish for new candidates? Is that what I was
Yeah,
hearing?
like on our homepage right now, like there's like a request for an auditor. We've listed, the road crew and stuff. There's usually a positions. And I think there are some, Michael Billingsley has told us he wants to step down as a town meeting, so Carl's
Yeah.
stepping down, so, we're gonna have openings, and so I think the sooner that the word gets out that we're looking for people for various places, the better.
Yep.
So I guess I'm wondering who's contacting Bob Fancher about that.
I can contact Bob tomorrow and just give him a heads up on this, if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like make the asks as wide as are. Like, it sounds like many positions, many commissions, many roles in town are needed.
Well, and I think there's definitely a role, I mean, we might even want to, so the lister is elected. So we don't really, as a select board, we don't choose that person. Carl is elected, we don't, as a select board, choose that person. But a bunch of the other roles we do, and I wonder if we even might want to look to having just like some sort of nomination, so kind of just like a work group, like we've been doing with other things, where two of us, plus Bram if he wants, plus maybe there's other people in the community who have helped us find, people to serve in roles, like get together and start to brainstorm and start to make sure that it's not mid-March and we realize there's all sorts of roles we don't have filled and we're in trouble.
I think it's wise.
I mean, with Carl not being a select board member anymore, he could probably take on multiple voluntary roles, like emergency
I'll hand my phone out.
management director. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that we could probably, like, we could just take him, he could be like Josh, he could have like we could just,
Yeah. I'm gonna need an administrator.
Everything else. Yeah, I think you have to sign.
Leave
here,
it to Dan to come up with a great idea.
to sign here and on the side.
No, I do like the subgroup idea.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yours was
Let's, I
here
mean,
and
we
then
don't
your
have to do
signature
it right
here.
now, but maybe.
Your
No, but like, I mean,
written
when you
here.
think about
I see.
it, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, there's like a dead zone there, and so it would be good to like get something out before the holidays.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan,
Can I make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 22nd regular select board meeting, the September 25th CDBG-DR grant application hearing, and the September 30th special select board meeting?
yes, you can. Second? And all those in favor say aye.
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 Peter, you have to sign this.
And can I also make another motion?
Do it. Did you go home?
Yes.
Can I make a motion to approve the accounts payable for September 29th, 2025 and October 2nd, 2025, along with payroll for September 25th, 2025 and October 9th, 2025?
Yes. I second.
And in the second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next date of our select board meeting is 10/27, that's a Monday, back to Monday, 6 o'clock. And
Can I ask the agenda people what's kind of queued up for them? Anything that you know about yet?
If you give me a moment.
Are we gonna talk about the rec field?
I think we should talk about the rec.
we should talk about the rec field, because there's gonna need to be budgeting items perhaps for that.
So rec field.
Yeah, we're getting close to budgeting.
Yeah. If we're gonna talk about the rec field, can we see if a representative from the Public Art, Recreation and Public Art Committee be present to discuss that with us?
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
that would be,
This is,
we should do that, yeah.
we have
I can get,
the grants group is both offering their report and also wanting to talk about short and long-term funding goal identification.
Priorities, yeah.
yeah,
There is, I believe there was something from the accessibility committee. Oh, they were talking about, what was it? It's so hard to read on my telephone.
Just one other thing for that meeting, we're required, the Board of Civil Authority is required to approve the non-JP election workers. And so I'd like to try to have that right before the select board meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that, Bram? I missed that?
It won't be
Sorry.
part of, the
The
board of civil
board-
authority will meet directly before the next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
just throwing that out. The pro forma thing.
Oh, and I was wrong about the accessibility committee. Apparently that's 10:14.
Dan?
Two things. One, just because I think I said this, but just, it is, the informational meeting for our November 4th, bond vote is on Monday, November 3rd at 6 PM at this location here, hosted by the select board. So just, everyone might want to put that on their calendars. Peter, it's gonna be a long drive back from your vacation to get here. And,
I'll still be here that day.
okay. I would like to make a motion.
Monday the 3rd at 6 PM.
Yep, I would like to make a motion to adjourn at 8:59 PM.
Second that.
And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's November 3rd at 6.
Just under the wire there, guys.
It's only an hour longer than the.
We almost got an hour extra.
Peter, where are you going on vacation?
We're going to Japan.
Arian, are you
Okay.
at the Rev conference tomorrow?
I am. Are you gonna be there,
I'll
Dan?
be there. I don't